Here we go on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm your host, Mike Gill. What's going on? Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there, very busy show today. The story, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks in six. Bucks in six. Giannis Antetokounmpo with 50 points last night to lead the way. Got a little zinger in there as well, which I appreciate. We'll talk more about that as the day goes on throughout the day. I'm very interested to get your guys' takes on this. I've had people tweeting at me all day today because I like the fact that Giannis last night essentially came out and just gave the big old bird to guys like KD and LeBron. He said, yeah, I could have joined a super team, but I'm not taking that easy way out. Isn't that the greatest, most refreshing thing to hear? Now, I get it. Not everybody can go down the same road as Giannis. And you could even make a good argument that, hey, they might not even have won or made it to the NBA Finals had some things not gone their way along the way. And you would be right. But you know what? Those things did happen, and he did win in the place he was drafted, and he did basically say, hey, guess what? I'm going to stay in Milwaukee, and I'm going to get it done. And I couldn't appreciate that anymore. I love that story. I was well documented that I hate what LeBron did. It was even more well documented that I despised what KD did. I think KD is probably the most spineless athlete of our time. LeBron, yes. But KD even more. Like LeBron put together the super team in Miami. It wasn't like they had just won the championship and knocked you out. KD has shown, look, I think KD, he was my favorite player. I love watching him. I love his game. But he has shown an inability to win by himself. He was at Oklahoma City. They had a 3-1 series lead. They had a chance to go to the finals that year. They lost. He was in Oklahoma City with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, very young in their careers. They made it to the finals, and they lost. He now goes to Brooklyn, had a chance to take that team past the Bucks in round one, couldn't get it done. I get it. They had a lot of injuries. But you're Kevin Durant, dude. You're Kevin Durant. You took the easy way out, and that's how I'll always view you. I will always view Kevin Durant as a lesser champion than anybody else. Of all the greats that who've ever played this game, Kevin Durant is the lowest of the low in terms of champions. Yeah, he'll go over forever to say, hey, I won multiple championships, but you will never have my respect. Now, that could be changed if he won a championship this season with all the injuries and carried that Brooklyn team. I might have said, hey, that was unbelievable. You changed my opinion. But until something like that happens, he will always be the guy that latched on to Golden State. He will always be the guy who tried to manufacture it again in Brooklyn this year. And they're going to probably win it next year. In fact, according to the NBA odds that have already come out for next year's champion, the Brooklyn Nets are number one. If you want to go put a bet down right now, the worst odds are Brooklyn, 13-4. Followed by the Lakers, 5-1. Followed by the Bucks, 7-1. Followed by Phoenix, 9-1. Golden State, 10-1. Clippers, 14-1. Philadelphia, 14-1. The whole LeBron thing, and somebody was tweeting at me they were tweeting at me on Twitter today. And we went back and forth, and it was a very, I got to give this guy a little bit of credit. He was not a troll. He was not some sort of angry guy. We just had a disagreement, and he agreed. Like, we just don't agree, and it's cool. I like the back and forth. And that's the kind of Twitter, that's what Twitter should be for. Not you suck, you're wrong. No, we just didn't agree, and he was giving some points, and I didn't agree with him, and I said, look, to each their own, man. And the point that I make is, I have always said this. LeBron James, I believe, in my opinion, could have stayed in Cleveland and did what Giannis did. Look, Giannis had some disappointing. They had 50-win teams, 56-win teams, 60-win teams, and never made the finals. He could have bailed on them and said, how am I going to get anybody to come to Milwaukee? And you can make the argument, it's a fine argument, that the Milwaukee front office was better than the ownership and the front office of the Cleveland team. Okay, fine. But you're LeBron James, right? You are LeBron James. Your voice is the loudest in the league. So somehow LeBron James can recruit players to Miami and Los Angeles, but he couldn't figure out how to recruit them to Cleveland, right? His voice was loud in Miami and Los Angeles, but he was muted in Cleveland? Come on. You're better than that. Don't take that bait. LeBron bailed on Cleveland because he wanted the easy way out. I get it. He dragged horrible teams to the finals, and he should be commended. He could have waited in Cleveland and had players come play with him. Instead, he bolted to Easy Road down on South Beach. And, oh, by the way, yes, he won in Cleveland, but said, I don't know that I can win in Cleveland again. So what am I going to do? I'll take my talents to L.A. Similar thing with Kevin Durant. I could have won in Oklahoma City, but it seems to be a lot easier to do it in Golden State after they just won. I guess I'll go there. And once that thing kind of dried up a little bit, he decided, hey, I can get all my friends to go to Brooklyn and we'll go win there. Giannis is the anti-everything. Giannis is now my favorite player in maybe all of sports. And I talked about this the other day. How can you... He became the most likable athlete almost ever in these finals, right? He has become almost the most likable guy there is. He wins the championship after signing an extension in the town that drafts him. Everybody thought he was going to leave, and he said, nope, unfinished business. Have to stay here in Milwaukee. Unfinished business. I could have joined a super team. And he said, I don't want to call them out, but I could have gone anywhere.
Man, I couldn't leave. You know, there was a job that had to be finished. You know, I feel like the bubble did not pay us justice. You know, give credit to Miami Heat. They played great, but it did not pay us justice. Like, everybody was feeling homesick. We're a family-oriented team. Wanted to see our families. But, you know, coming back, I was like, this is my city. You know, they trust me. They believed in me. They believed in us. Even when we were lost, the city still was like on our side. And, you know, obviously I wanted to get the job done. You know, but that's my stubborn side. Like, it's easy to go somewhere and go and win a championship with somebody else. It's easy. I could go, I don't want to put anybody in the spot, but I could go to a super team and, you know, just do my part and win a championship, still won. But this is the hard way to do it, and this is the way I chose to do it. And we did it. We did it, man.
Yeah, I could have taken the easy. I love it. I could have taken the easy way. I mean, he literally lambasted Durant. I could have taken the easy way. And then he says, I don't want to call out the teams, but I could have gone to a super team and just played my role. I mean, I love it. Let me tell you this. We talk a lot about the disappointment of the Sixers, which is totally accurate. But we also say context is king, and think about this. Joel Embiid is 27 years old. Ben Simmons is 25 yesterday. Giannis just turned 26, or he'll be 27. And we always say, look, the greats, they don't jump into the league at 23, 24, 25 and start winning championships. In fact, at 26 years old, Michael Jordan was a 6-time All-Star. He won an MVP. He still never won a title. LeBron James was a 7-time All-Star at 26 years old. He won 2 MVPs, but he never won a title. Giannis at 26 is a 5-time All-Star. He has 2 MVPs, and he has a title and a Finals MVP. I'm not suggesting that Giannis is better than LeBron or Jordan, but the point I'm making is what Giannis did last night at 26, again, That's the exception, not the rule. It's why we need to be patient. It's why LeBron could have been patient. It's why he didn't need to bail on Cleveland. It's why Kevin Durant didn't need to bail on Cleveland. All of these guys, they wanted to rush. Now, I'm not saying it's the only way. Because, look, the reason I bring this up is what's going on right now. Right? What's going on right now? Dame Lillard, he's now stuck in this rock and a hard place. What do I do? What do I do? Do I stay in Portland and do what Giannis did and try to figure out a way to get people to come play with me? Or do I bail and become the hired gun? Do I bail and become, Dame Lillard could become Chris Paul, where he starts on one team, goes to another, ends up here, goes there, and at the end of the day, he might be left with the bag in his hand with empty, no money, no championships. Would it be more gratifying for Dame to stay there? Look, it would be more gratifying for everybody, in my opinion, unless something completely goes wrong. Are there examples? Sure, there are examples. Kevin Garnett hated playing in Minnesota. He hated the owner. He hated everything. So he bailed. He left. And he said, my only regret is I wish I would have done it sooner. That's not the case for Dame Lillard. He doesn't hate ownership there. Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't hate the owner there. LeBron James, he didn't hate the owner. He was in a situation where he felt, and this is where I feel LeBron should have been better than this. He felt that they couldn't get any better. That's telling me that you didn't believe in yourself, LeBron. You have the loudest voice in the league. So you're telling me Giannis Antetokounmpo somehow figured out a way to get people to come to Milwaukee? Chris Middleton, they traded for. Drew Holiday, they traded for. They figured it out. They got there. They figured it out. And as this text message says from PJ and Manahawkin, while you make a good point, Mike, I don't know the Cleveland front office back when LeBron was first there really cared to sign actual good players. Yeah, LeBron could have recruited people, but if the front office didn't want to make a deal or sign the players, there's nothing LeBron could have done. The Cleveland front office wasn't committed to winning back then, in my opinion. They were content on having LeBron carry scraps through the playoffs. You may be right, PJ. They did make some trades. They did try to do some things. Now, I say try, the operative word. They brought in Antoine Jameson, Larry Hughes. They brought in, old Shaq. They did not do a great job, but they did try to give the appearance that they were trying to give him somebody. The problem was, and I agree with what you're saying, PJ, you're not wrong. The problem was, as I kind of chronicled, and this is where the process and what the Sixers did kind of winds its way into the conversation. The problem was LeBron gets drafted to what? The worst team in the league, right? LeBron is so good that they are no longer the worst team in the league. In fact, they are now one of the best teams in the league. And because of it, they couldn't get a player to play with LeBron. They got stuck in this situation where LeBron took them from 17-65 to what? Middle of the pack. They were the 9 seed. They didn't make the playoffs LeBron's first 2 years in the league, but they were just good enough to not get anybody to help LeBron out. That's what the 9 seed does for you. Yay, you won 35 games. You know what you would have been better off doing? Having LeBron James maybe miss the year and get somebody in the first round of the draft and see if that guy could have helped you. Because you know what would have been really nice? If LeBron James had a running mate that he could have played with. If LeBron James could have got a guy like, Dwight Howard, who was the first pick in the draft in 2004, or maybe he ends up getting a guy that he could have paired with to help him out. The problem was LeBron was so good, he couldn't get that running mate ever. Normally, the guy who's the best player in the league, or the first pick in the draft, I should say, he goes to the worst team, and they're not playoff worthy right away. and they can try to get that second guy to go with them. That never happened there. So they slowly start to climb up the ladder. They go from 17 wins to 35 to 42 to 50, back to 50, 45, 66, 61. And then LeBron says, I'm out of here. 66 wins, I'm out of here. 66 wins, 61 wins, I'm out of here. So you're telling me a team, now LeBron's at this time, what, 24, 25 years old? They win 66 games, 61 games, back-to-back seasons. And then he just lost patience. He lost it. He said, we can't do it here, I'm leaving. So what did he do? He left so that they could tank. They get Kyrie Irving. They get the number 1 pick again. They trade that to get Kevin Love. And LeBron says, you know what? I've already gone and won my 2 championships with Miami. I think I'll come back. You guys have gotten better all of a sudden. He wins the championship there. They lose in the finals 2 more times. He decides, you know what? This isn't for me. I'll go take the easy way. I want to win a couple more titles. I'm heading to L.A. Giannis did it differently. Giannis is probably my favorite athlete of all time right now. I'm pontificating a little bit, but the way that he did it, the way that he said it, I mean, he essentially said, Durant, you're a loser. And I loved it. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. We'll talk about it with, because, look, here's the thing. I don't think teams can follow suit and do what Milwaukee did. I don't think you're going to see teams lining up to do what they did. How will this change the complexion of the NBA? I'm not sure it will. I'm not sure that this changes the complexion of the NBA. Because I think most people look at what the Bucks did, right or wrong, fair or unfair. I think people look at what the Bucks did as, well, there was a lot of injuries, the Nets, all that stuff. Greeny said this today on 97.3 ESPN. And, I think it's something to kind of consider when looking at this whole situation with Giannis and the Bucks.
The NBA needed this. I don't care what the TV ratings are. I don't care if Laker fans and Knick fans only know Milwaukee because it's where the Fonz was from. A sport is a sport. It's not just a TV show. And this sport needed an immortal player to step up and say, I'm not running to LA. I'm not calling up all my friends I grew up with and taking the easy way. This sport needed Giannis Antetokounmpo, the easiest to root for big man in memory, to say, I'm staying in Milwaukee, and then actually win. You got Giannis, and he stayed. He signed a Supermax contract last summer because he didn't want it to be a distraction for his team. He could be a free agent right now, trying to figure out who he could pair up with to take the easy way. Instead, he took the hard way, and he won.
Giannis, you're the man. And by the way, we didn't even talk about the effort in the game he had last night. 50 points. It's one of the great efforts in the history of the NBA Finals. It's one of the greatest performances that I ever saw. And what's funny? He's not the most graceful guy. He's certainly not going to ever shoot. And maybe he will. I don't know. But he does it from the line last night. This is a guy who, we talk a lot about Ben Simmons, and we say, well, there's no evidence of this or that, or that he's going to do this, or his game's going to evolve. And maybe there isn't. But Giannis was once that guy that we questioned. And guess what? Giannis hasn't developed much in his game. He just continues to play harder. He still needs a lot of work in certain areas, but he's added just enough, right? He's added just enough to his game. He doesn't really shoot the ball all that well, but he will pull up from just inside the foul line. He has that little one-hander. He just finds a way to get to the basket. What was he from the line last night? 17 of 19? he is, and what I admire about the whole situation is, again, he's not a better player than Durant. He's not a more skillful guy than LeBron. He's not the better shooter than Steph Curry. And those guys, all of them, I'm not questioning their desire and will and want, but I don't think they desire, will, and want more than Giannis does. And that's saying a lot next to those guys. That's saying a lot. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I hope you're enjoying a Wednesday. Stay dry out there. Apparently, it's raining pretty hard. Just out of nowhere, the skies opened up. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Phillies lose last night. What's wrong with Aaron Nola? That was another terrible outing by Nola. Terrible defensive play by Didi, giving up another run. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open. Blackwood Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot. Online, mattblattnissan.com. So I want to ask you, the listening audience, are you like me when the way that I look at Giannis and respect him so much more than the other champions? Kevin Durant, LeBron James, that group of guys. Or does that not matter to you? Because to me, Giannis, I respect his championship way more than the KD one. That's for sure. Or KD 2, excuse me. And certainly more than the two LeBrons in Miami and the one in LA. So I would rank them. I'll give you my rankings on these championships. Coming up here on the Sports Bash, plus the latest on Zach Ertz. Might we see Zach Ertz in an Eagles uniform on September the 12th when the Eagles open up their season? Back with more. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. You can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I hope you guys are enjoying the day. A little wet outside. It should pass us pretty quickly here. Over on the video stream, TJ Hiles says LeBron's move to L.A. was purely wanting the easy way and nothing to do with his kid playing out there as production company. Otherwise, I agree. Yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously, at the end, he had already won championships. So at that point, the LA stuff is kind of whatever to me. I mean, at the point that he won in Cleveland, that's what he set out to do. He won in Cleveland. After that, he decided, I don't really want to stay in Cleveland. Look, his kid playing out there or his production company, I got news for you. You're LeBron James. You can have a production company in LA without playing for the Lakers. Just to fill you in. You don't have to play for the Lakers to have a production company in LA. You don't have to play for the Lakers to have a house in LA. You can live in LA and travel during the basketball season like normal. You can have a house in Cleveland, which I'm sure he still does, and stay there when you're on your homestand and still have a house in LA, have his kid play basketball in LA. And I got news for you. You can have a production company in L.A. if you live in Cleveland and play for the Cavaliers. You don't have to play for the Lakers to do that. That's not the prerequisite. Can I have a production company? Well, do you play for the Lakers, sir? No. Well, no, you're going to have to come to L.A. and play for the Lakers if you want to sign up for this production company. I mean, really? Is that really the mindset that you have, TJ Hiles? You seem like a smart guy. It looks like your picture there. You have a graduating robe on like you went to a college or something. You can't really have that opinion. I mean, you can't really think that. Other than that, I appreciate you chiming in. SLR, Giannis and the Bucks did exactly what they were supposed to do. They took advantage of their opportunity. That's what the greats do, and not everyone can do that. Yeah, I mean, they beat Brooklyn, and they had a scratch and claw and fight, and then they got down in the Hawks series when they played the Hawks. Who'd they play in the second round? No, they beat Miami and then Brooklyn, and then they beat the Hawks, right? You forget the Miami series because they waxed them. Right, they lost the first game of the Brooklyn series, the Hawks series, and the Nets series, the Suns series. They lost the first game in all of them and came back to win. But they did what they were supposed to do. They took advantage of an opportunity, something the Sixers couldn't do in a year where it was a watered-down Eastern Conference because of injury. And because of injury, the Hawks, the Bucks got a great path. But we talked about it with the Sixers. They were never going to have a better path. They were the number one seed. In the second round, they were going to get the Knicks or the Hawks, and they couldn't take advantage of it. Giannis gets more respect than those other guys. He really put in the work from a malnourished kid from Greece to NBA champion. That's from SLR watching the show on YouTube. Look, the way that I look at it like this, right? The way that I look at the champions, I got the list of the champions up. I got what Giannis did last night has to be, this is a tough one, okay? This is tough. And I'll tell you why. You got Giannis winning the title with the team that drafted him that hadn't won a championship in 50 years, okay? The Lakers championship from last year, that's got to fall far down on the list. I'm going to go back I'll go back like 10 years, all right? I'll go back like 10 years. So these are the teams that won in the last 10 years. Giannis, Bucks, LeBron's Lakers, Kawhi's Raptors, the KD Warriors back-to-back, the LeBron Cavs, the Steph Curry Warriors, the Kawhi Spurs, the super team Heat back-to-back, and we'll go back to the Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks, okay? Now, if you're ranking those right there, The Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks have got to be considered in terms of appreciation and how impressed you are. I'm putting the Dirk, I'm going to probably rank them with Giannis. Actually, no. I think Dirk deserves more credit for winning that against that Heat team. Well, for two reasons. One, Dirk, similar to Giannis, stayed with the same team that drafted him, had a lot of failures, stayed there, but they beat the super team. They beat the super team Heat. And that's probably the most impressive thing of all. So then 2 would be the Giannis win last night. 3, believe it or not, 3 and 4 would both be Kawhi. Right? Kawhi with the Spurs beating the Heat in 2014. And then Kawhi with the Raptors. Now, the problem with the Raptors one is he left the Spurs to go to the Raptors. But he had already won with the Spurs. So it wasn't like he bailed on the Spurs. He already won with the Spurs. He was a finals MVP with the Spurs. So I'm going to go Spurs and then Raptors. So then what's left over? I'm going to go Warriors 20. Actually, I'll go Cavs 2016. That's the LeBron team beating the Warriors team. Right? No, that wasn't the super team yet. That was the year before. And then I'm going to go the 2015 Warriors. All right? And then, so this is where the rest of these teams are just a bunch of super teams clogged up. Do I go with the Heat super teams back-to-back or the Warriors super teams back-to-back? I'm going to go with the the Heat beat the Oklahoma team that had Kevin Durant. They also beat the Spurs team that had Duncan towards the end there. And then the Warriors beat the LeBron Cavs teams. Now, the one LeBron Cavs team was a shell of it. They were both shell. I would say the 2 Cavs teams, even though they had LeBron, were the 2 worst teams. So I'm going to go with the Heat, and then the Warriors with KD twice, and then that Lakers from last year is the worst of them all. So in the last 10 years, my rankings would be Dirk Nowitzki winning with the Mavericks, Giannis winning with the Bucks, Kawhi winning with the Spurs, Kawhi winning with the Raptors, LeBron winning with the Cavs, the Warriors beating LeBron, the back-to-back Heats, the back-to-back Warriors with KD, and then LeBron's Lakers. So KD and LeBron are last on the list of my rankings of the last 10 years. Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. McGarry's anxiously awaiting, I'm sure, listening in to what I just explained. Giannis became my favorite player in the history of the game last night. I'm joking somewhat, but it was refreshing. It was cool. It was great. But it probably won't happen again. You know, in 10 years from now or 20 years from now, this Bucks team will be the way that we talk about that Pistons team. Where you don't have to have a superstar. The Pistons did it. Yeah, but they're the only one. The Bucks team will be the anomaly team. But I'm glad that Giannis got one because I don't know that he'll ever get one again. Should I question Giannis? Is that a tough thing to do? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Go to 97.3 ESPN. All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is back with us. And, of course, you can read his must-win column every Friday in the Press of Atlantic City. And he joins us right now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. The Milwaukee Bucks are the NBA champions, Mike. And I guess Giannis last night, now that is a epic performance, but I'm almost I love what he said afterwards. My favorite thing of the whole night. He basically told Kevin Durant, hey, dude, you're lame. You're weak. I did it this way. You suck. He's my favorite athlete now.
Well, he did it the old-fashioned way, right? Stayed with the team that drafted him. They built that team up around him, and he won a championship. So it's back to, kind of what we saw in the 80s and 90s there, basically, and not what we've seen recently, which is, guys coming together and forming super teams to win championships. I agree with you. Giannis is an easy guy to root for.
Very much so. Now, do you think this will be a new trend, or will they be the anomaly? Will they be, when we look back, we always talk, well, that Larry Brown-led Pistons team, they didn't have a star, but it's like, yeah, but they were the only one. Will the Bucks be kind of an anomaly now when we look back?
Well, Sixers fans better hope they're not an anomaly, right? Because Sixers are trying to do the same thing with Joel Embiid, so they better hope the Milwaukee Bucks aren't an anomaly. I think you'll see both ways, and I think it's important to keep in mind here that Milwaukee won it, and they did a great job, but they're a Kevin Durant big toe away from losing that series and a super team winning, which would have been a lot less hard or easy to root for if it was Durant, Harding, and Kyrie Irving parading around with the trophy rather than Middleton, Giannis, and Jrue Holiday last night.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously, he says afterwards, I could have gone to a super team and done that. Obviously, he's taking a little bit of a shot at Kevin Durant, maybe a little bit of LeBron in that angle. But does this make things a little different now with guys like Dame Lillard, Bradley Beal, when they try to decide what their futures are? What do you think about that?
No, I think those guys are still going to try to go and form a super teams and put themselves in positions to win. First of all, let's look at Giannis. I mean, Giannis right now, I think you really got to think of him as maybe one of the top 20 players in NBA history after what he's done. 2 MVP awards, 50 points, finals MVP, championship. As good as Dame Lillard and Bradley Beal are, they're not Giannis. I mean, they're not one of the top, arguably 15, 20 guys in NBA history, which after last night, after this playoff run, I think you've got to put Giannis in that class.
Yeah, I mean, at 26 years old, he's got somebody tweeted the other night, 5 All-Stars, 2 MVPs, and a championship. Jordan and LeBron both had not won a championship by this time, but I think it also shows that how hard it is to do. People just wanted this Sixers team like Christmas Day to get ripped out of a box and just start winning championships. Like the greats had to wait. Giannis is almost the anomaly now.
Well, there's good news and bad news, I think, for the Sixers coming out of this, out of Milwaukee's win, as far as trying to win a championship, right? The good news is that Milwaukee showed the value of patience, right? I think during the interview last night, Giannis said he and Middleton had been together 8 years. Now, obviously, Giannis wasn't what he is now when he first went into the league, but that would be the argument for it takes time, right? Simmons and Embiid have really been only together for 4 or 5 years. They let's stay with them. Let's be patient because the reward could be coming 2 to 3 years from now. The flip side of that was when you look at these playoffs and the revelation that I'm coming out of the playoffs with is, boy, if you said to me before the season, who's better, Chris Middleton or Ben Simmons, I probably would have said Ben Simmons. Now I'm saying Chris Middleton, and it's not even close. I can't believe, maybe it's just me, how much I underestimated Middleton and how good he is as far as a guy who can play in big-time pressure basketball games. So there's the positive is they had those 2 guys, and they gave them time to sort of marinate and come to fruition, right? The flip side is when I look at what the Sixers core is, I'm not sure those 2 guys together, if given the time, can do it because of Simmons' limitations.
Do you let them marinate in terms of we're forgetting Tobias Harris? Is he the Chris Middleton that we're not letting marinate enough yet?
No, I look at Tobias Harris as the Drew Holiday in the group, right? As the number 3 guy. I don't think Tobias Harris is a number 2 guy. I think he's shown that in the past playoffs. Nice player, but I don't think Tobias Harris does what Chris Middleton did consistently in the playoffs. You look at games 4, 5, and 6, Middleton hit the biggest shots on a consistent basis. I think he averaged close to 25 a game in the final. I completely underestimated him. I don't think Tobias Harris can do that.
Which is interesting. It's a great point, Mike. The fact, though, that, there were times in these playoffs that Middleton disappeared and you were like, this team's – and then the next night, even in this game last night, he comes down, he throws that ball away, and you're like, what are you doing? And then the next possession, he comes down and hits the biggest shot of the night. I mean, he was really, an inconsistent number 2 guy, but in the games they lost, you were like, and then some of the games they won. I mean, that being said, he certainly was more apt and ready to do this than a guy like Harris is right now.
Yeah, or a guy like Simmons, right? I mean, I think, again, he obviously had some bad games when they lost. That's probably why they lost. If he played like he played great.
To be fair, Mike, people forget they won some games without Giannis. That him and Drew Holiday had some big games.
Right, and Drew Holiday.
They did beat the Hawks without Trae Young.
Right, and Drew Holiday was inconsistent offensively also, but he was consistent defensively. I mean, I didn't think he was very good offensively last night, but he was tremendous defensively against Devin Booker. So, that's when you look at the Sixers, okay, they are the Bucks. Let's not forget, too, the Bucks added Drew Holiday to the core this year, so they made some changes there. But when you look at the Sixers right now, I look at, the Nets core, obviously, Durant, Irving, and Harden is ahead of them. That Bucks core, I still got to put Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday above them. So now I put those Sixers in with the Celtics, the Heat, the Hawks, that group. I say to myself, even if you gave them time, Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris are not developing, in my opinion, into what Middleton was able to do in this series. That's why you got to make a move. Got
some text messages coming in. The Bucks winning is why the Sixers should keep Simmons. Ben is not done getting better. He's still 2 years away from his prime. I think there's too much of an overreaction because they lost to the Hawks. Fair or unfair?
Completely unfair. It's not an overreaction. We've seen Simmons in 2 Eastern Conference semifinals, game 7s, in the fourth quarters of those series completely shrink from the moment. He's not, and even if he improves, he's not doing what Chris Middleton does, which is what you need to complement Embiid. Look at this. People got to look at this like they're Joel Embiid. You beat Joel Embiid in late August. Okay, he's put down the FIFA game on his PlayStation or his Xbox or whatever, and he's meeting with Daryl Morey, and Morey comes in and says, hey, Joel, we're going to try to win an NBA championship, and we're going to do it again with Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. What do you think Joel's reaction is? The Bucks did the same thing last year. They said, hey, Giannis, stay with us. We're going to keep Middleton, and we're going to add Drew Holiday. You got yourself an NBA championship. You can't – Simmons is not – the ship has left the port on that one. He is not developing into a consistent scorer in a playoff game, which is what you need.
Yeah. Oh, I agree that you're not going to it's funny though. You watch what Giannis does and it's like you just say the inner will and want to me is the biggest difference in those two types of players.
I agree. I mean, you look at Giannis and you say to yourself, well, why can't Ben Simmons play like that, right? I mean, Giannis is obviously bigger, stronger. I don't want to say Simmons can be a poor man's version of Giannis. Simmons is big at 6'10", but I don't think he has the overall strength or size of Giannis. But as far as a similar style, as willing to embrace the moment as a guy who is not afraid to go to the foul line in the closing minutes of a close game. And last night he made his foul shots. If he doesn't make his foul shots, if he shoots like Giannis normally does from the foul line, we're going back to Phoenix for game 7, right? So, the mentality when you look at Giannis is you say, why can't Simmons play like that? Why can't he attack the rim rather than driving and passing the ball to Matisse Thybulle?
Now, does Mike McGarry look at the Giannis championships differently than the KDs, the LeBrons, that group?
I look at all championships the same. I think this is a little bit sweeter because it's kind of a homegrown. And obviously, look, I'm not a guy who likes to see all these kind of like AAU type of moves where, hey, you come join my team and we'll go win this tournament or we'll do this. Obviously that it's homegrown. I just think it's sweeter. And I also like the fact that Giannis is just an easy guy to root for. You listen to his interviews, his perspective on the game, his perspective of some of the stuff he said on life is just easy stuff for young kids, young basketball players to look up to and admire. And it's a little less mercenary, right, than the Brooklyn Nets, which is basically like, hired guns coming together to win a championship, basically.
Mike McGarry, and of course, you could check him out in the Press of Atlantic City. Fridays, his must-win column appears. You could check that out. The Phillies last night, I want to switch over to there real fast. Another stinko from Aaron Nola, and now Eflin's on the DL. So there were some positive vibes, Mike, when we talked on Monday, and all of a sudden, we feel a little different.
Yeah, how it changes from day to day, right? That's why I think we're going to have to wait out until July 30th, until the trade deadline to see exactly where we're at. But the thing I'm going to write my must-win column for this week, give you a little preview on Thursday. It'll be online Thursday, in the paper on Friday, is I think when the Phillies, they obviously need pitching help, as you said. I think they need to, make sure that they get a vaccinated pitcher in here, because do you want to acquire somebody who's unvaccinated, who might get caught up in, COVID-19, either getting it or contact tracing? Do you want to trade for a starter and have him miss 2 starts of the maybe 10 he's going to make to you because he's out 10 days? And this is getting a little hectic with pulling relievers off the field during batting practice, and now bringing up Spencer Howard today and having guys drive from Allentown to Yankee Stadium and then back to Allentown. This is no way to kind of run a ball team. So I think when the Sixers, they need some certainty, and that certainty means if you're going to trade for somebody, you might want to make sure they're vaccinated so they can be eliminated from 90% of the uncertainty that the Phillies have had to go through the last couple of days.
Yeah, Dave Dombrowski was asked about that on the John Clark podcast the other day, and he kind of said, yeah, it's something we'll consider, but if Craig Kimbrell is available and they agree to a deal, and that like, do you take that under consideration?
Yeah, I think you got to. I think a reliever. I mean, suppose you would trade for a reliever or a closer, and he's out for 10 days. And it's even more if you trade for a starter, and he's out for 2 starts and has to miss another start because he can't pitch or something like that. I think it's definitely a factor, and I just don't think it's the Phillies. I think it's something that every baseball team has got to look for, especially if you're renting a guy for 2 months, right? You're renting a guy for 10 starts. If you can't make 2 or 3 of them, boy, you got to think twice about making that trade. But there's no doubt now with Eflin out, with the bullpen situation they have, they need pitching. And like I say, we're going to have to see how this plays out till July 30th, because as you mentioned, it changes day to day. Mets are winning 7-0 today. The Phillies, if they play the Yankees tonight, if the game's not rained out, you could be back to 3.5, 4 games out and headed the other way now.
Things move quickly, as they did from Monday to Wednesday when we last talked to Mike. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Read his must-win column at the Press of Atlantic City. Check it out in Friday's edition of the Press of Atlantic City. All right, Mike.
All right, see you. Take care.
All right, that's Mike McGarry here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN at AC Press McGarry. Give him a follow and check out his must-win column. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, right next to the Home Depot, online at mattblattnissan.com. I'm Mike Gill. Thanks to everybody who's been texting and leaving comments on the video stream. We know you have a lot of choices out there. We always appreciate you making the choice to engage with us here on the Sports Bash. I've got plenty more to go. Jason Fitz, next hour. Jeff Mosher. Also, NBA conversation on the way. We'll talk with Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report at 3:40 today. And the Flyers expansion draft, the possibilities of what could happen with Kevin Durso. Check it out right now on our website, 97.3 ESPN.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. More coming up next. All right, hour two of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. What's going on? I'm Mike Gill, taking you till 6 o'clock tonight. And, of course, coming up at 4 o'clock today, 1 hour from now, it's Football at 4. Jeff Mosher will be here for today's edition of Football at 4. And speaking of Football at 4, I got news on Zach Ertz. The latest on him, it looks like Ertz not only will be reporting on Tuesday, but could be playing with the Eagles all season long. We thought it was a foregone conclusion that Ertz would not be a member of the Eagles this year, and it looks like that is changing as the time goes on. It looks like that possibility is getting more and more realistic, that he might, in fact, be here when the season starts. It fears that they could not find a suitor. They could not find someone. Mike, gotta love the Greek freak. Awesome. I wonder how Joel feels today. He is likely happy for Giannis, but also furious thinking it should be him. You think Ben watched and said, I need to get better like Giannis did? LOL. The inner will and want sums it up nicely. Spot on, Mike. Did Ben watch the series and think that? Highly doubtful he even watched from the Maldives or wherever he's chilling. There's a lot there to unpack, but I think you're right. I think Joel's got to watch that series and wonder, what if? But number two, I think Joel also has to watch that series and say, I want to stay here and get it done. I want to stay with the Sixers, the team that drafted me, the team that believed in me. Two other teams passed on me because of my foot injury, and the Sixers are the one that took care of me. So I look at Joel closer to what Giannis went through and said, I want to win for the city of Philadelphia. I want to win because they believed in me. Now, the part about Ben Simmons, I did think about that. Like, could the Sixers and Ben Simmons watch that together and say, look how this guy's evolved. Look how this guy has the will and the want. Show him video. We talk about videos all the time, him shooting jumpers. Forget that. Show him the video of the night he played against the Utah Jazz and scored 40. Show him the night of the playoff game against the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs from 2 years ago. Show him those nights when he has been ultra aggressive and say, look, if you are this guy, we can win a title. But we need you to be this guy. We're not asking you to develop three-point shots. We're not asking you to do this. Can you be this guy? And I think that would be a huge difference maker. If he's not going to be that guy, then he better develop other avenues of his game. If he's not going to be the guy that says, hey, I'm going to go out there and catch and shoot threes from the corner, then you better develop other avenues of your game. That's what Giannis did. Giannis is not a good shooter. In fact, he's a terrible shooter, right? But he just decided, I'm going to just outwork you. I'm going to take the ball to the basket. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you can't stop me. Because you can stop me, or I stop myself in so many other areas. I don't shoot the ball well. I don't make threes. I don't shoot from the free throw line all that well. Now, last night, he scored 50 points on 16 of 25 shooting with 14 rebounds and 5 blocks and 2 assists. He made 17 of 19 free throws last night. Can you help yourself in that area? These are all the things. Hey, Giannis is not a great free throw shooter, but when push came to shove, in the biggest of moments, he got it done. So that text message is a fair question to ask. It's a very thought-provoking one. The question is, do we believe that Ben Simmons is watching that game last night thinking what we're thinking? No, I don't believe that. I don't think Ben Simmons says, man, look at the inner fire this guy has. If you don't have the inner fire, you don't have it. You can't manufacture that. You either have that, you're born with that, it's innate. You either have it or you do not. You know, Giannis Antetokounmpo from three-point range in his career shoots 28%. Not good. This year from three-point range, 30%. Not good. From the free throw line in his career, 71%. I wouldn't say horrendous in today's world, but definitely below average. He shot 63% from the free throw line last year, 68% this season. But guess what? He still gets there 10 times a game. If you've listened to this show, I keep saying Ben Simmons needs to get to the free throw line 10 times per game. And if he hits 60%, his scoring average goes up by 6 points. We always say he's got to score more points. That's how he does it. He goes from a 15-point-a-game scorer up to about a 20-point-a-game scorer. But he doesn't get to the line enough. Giannis doesn't care. Giannis got to the line his rookie year 2 times a game. His second year, he got there 4 times a game. The next year, he got there 5 times a game. The next year, he got there 7 times a game. The following year, he got there 8 times a game. The next year, he got there 9 times a game. Last year, he got there 10 times a game. You see the pattern? And the funny part is his free throw percentage, at one point, he was at 77%. He went from 77 to 63. But the attempts just kept on going up. They kept going up. They kept going up. They kept going up. They kept going up. Every single year. That's development. That is just wanting. That is just, and that's the difference. That's the biggest, that is a huge difference. The innate ability to have the will and the want. That's something that you just can't go to the store and buy that. You can't work out in the gym all season long or all off season long and acquire that. You have to have that. One guy does, the other guy doesn't. But you watch Giannis and say, what has his game really developed? The game hasn't developed as much as the inner fire has. Because his offensive game is very limited. But it shows that you can win with a guy who has a very limited offensive skill set if said guy has more will and want. Your guy doesn't have the will and the want. Their guy does. He's got a title today. Your guy's getting talked about in trade talks. People don't like the comparison. But if you talk to many people who cover this league, many will tell you, Simmons has a better handle. He's a better passer. He sees the floor better. He just doesn't have the one thing that Giannis does, that inner self, will, and want. And that right now is holding this team back. Everything across the board, as we mentioned with Giannis. He started off, never got to the line, 2 times a game. Now he's up to 10. That's a huge jump, right? And people act like, well, his rookie year. Did you see the pictures of him last night, how skinny he was his rookie year? Oh, my God, it didn't even look like the same guy, how skinny he was. He got to the line 2 times a game. Why? Well, he wasn't big and strong enough. He probably didn't want to get himself to the line because he's probably getting his ass beaten in down there. 3-point attempts, 1.5. Then he was up to 2. Then he was up to 4. This year he is 3.6. Not a great 3-point shooter, just willing. Attempts per game, 5, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19. That just kept going up and up and up. And that is, again, the will, the want, the desire, the inner fire, the inner ability, all of that stuff. Jersey P, you are right. Ben doesn't have the killer instinct. That is, to me, the biggest separation between where Milwaukee is right now and where Philadelphia is right now. They have a guy who has the inner fire, killer instinct. And one of your best players does not. But the limitations that Ben has isn't what's holding this team back as much as the killer instinct that he lacks. That's what's holding this team back. What did McGarry said? He almost backed himself into it by saying, well, Drew Holiday's defense was a huge reason why they won. Yeah, you need that defense. And they have it. The Sixers have that defense. They just need the guy on the other end to have that inner fire, that inner will. And at 24 years old, can you get it? Maybe. I was thinking to myself the other day, what goes on in one's brain that when you're a young person, you hear certain music and you're attracted to it. And that the same human being could hear that music 10 years down the road and be like, why do I like this music now differently or better? You know, when you're 22 years old, you're not sitting there listening to oldies music. It's not what you're drawn to. But why at 40 do you decide a song from 1967 is all of a sudden appealing? It's kind of weird, isn't it? Well, your brain and you develop and you change and you evolve and things. At 24, is Ben Simmons listening to music? When he's 28, is that music going to change? It might. But is he going to acquire that inner fire that fuels Giannis? Because, again, if you watch Giannis last night, he scored 50 points, and I don't think he took a shot outside the paint. So for all the people I hear about, his offensive game is this and that, Giannis Antetokounmpo is your answer. How many shots did he shoot outside the paint last night? Do we have a shot chart on him from last night? Because I saw the last time he scored 47, he didn't shoot outside the paint once. So it's not about evolving your game. It's about having a ticker. There's your difference. The ticker. The ticker's different. Right? Kyle says, let's build around Ben the same way the Bucks do and watch the difference. I've been saying it all year. I love Joel, but in today's game, Joel should be the second guy. Well, that's an interesting take. You know, I look at Joel as a unique player, as kind of a unicorn in the league. You know, nobody does what LeBron does. Nobody does what KD does. Nobody really does what Giannis does. And nobody does what Joel does. So I think you can win with Joel playing the way that he does. I think the difference is you need to find that guy that's your Middleton, that complementary player. And it's not Ben Simmons. 609-403-0973. The shot chart for Giannis last night, he shot 4 shots from just inside the free throw line. So where the little dotted area inside that circle, he shot 4 shots from inside there. He took 1 3, and he took 3 threes. He made 1. Every other shot he took was inside the, what do you call that area where you take the charge? What's that called? Where what's that? The charge circle? Is that what it's called? Every other shot he took was inside the area of the charge circle. Every shot he took was inside that. Every shot but 5 on the night. That is unbelievable. He was in the painted area the entire game. So don't tell me about his game's not evolved, that he needs to do this. No, his game is fine if he just wants it more. If he just simply wants it more. Now, the fair question is, does he want it more? And I would be on the side of no. No, he doesn't. And that's what should worry you. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Text board's open. The video stream, a lot of people going back and forth in the video stream. And we'll also open up the phone, 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. My guy Glenn in EHC. What's going on, Glenn?
Yo, Mike. I look at Ben Simmons. I mean, when you talk about what Giannis does down low, it's domination. I mean, Simmons doesn't dominate. I mean, he has touch around the rim. Ben Simmons, to me, has no touch. I wonder, like I said a few times, whether his eyes are even open when he throws the ball at the basket. You brought up a few games where he had 30 and 40 points. I mean, Haley's Comet does come around every once in a blue. I mean, you're not getting that from him. You see what he did, 3 to 4 games, 40 and 50. I mean, you're not getting that. Ben is a role player. He's a good player. You tell me I don't appreciate his game. I appreciate greatness, and and I appreciate goodness. Ben is good. That's it. He's a good player. A good role player.
And part of the reason that is, Glenn, is because he doesn't play with the same intensity. Like Giannis doesn't have great touch. He just goes up and gets his miss and refuses. He misses it. He goes back and gets it and puts it back. How many times does he take 2 and 3 shots in the painted area? He just outworks everybody. He's not pretty to watch.
I see him put it off the glass a lot more fluently and with a lot more touch than Ben ever will. In my opinion, I don't see anything like that from Ben ever around the rim. He just throws the thing up there. To me, when Giannis goes up there is some touch around the rim. His finger roll is pretty sweet. It's pretty smooth.
Well, he's also right. He's also getting so when he does that finger roll, he is so. I told you last night he took 27 shots, 23 of them. He is inside the charge circle. I mean, he's 7 foot tall, 250 pounds. Yeah, he's gonna finish right there.
I don't see that from Ben. Like I said, you saying what I've been saying for years. He doesn't have the want. He doesn't have the.
Well, there's what we'll agree. There's what we'll agree is he does not have the inner will that gentleman has. Not even close does he have the same will and want and inner fire. And that is something that you're either born with that or you're not. And Ben Simmons simply not born with it.
That's how I see it. Until I see it, I will give him credit for what he does. He has a good defensive play. Not defensive play, Ben. Good pass here and there. But there's no dominance from Ben ever to me. He just plays good. He makes a good defense.
Well, you only look at dominance in scoring, and that's where I disagree with you, Glenn. You only care a dominance in how many points he scores and scoring, and that to me is just not looking at the whole game. He dominates games by not even scoring half the time. He is so dominant in games in the way that he controls the pace and the flow. And when somebody else scores, like Joel Embiid, 45 points, a lot of that is because, hey, there are games when Tobias Harris has nights of 35 and 40 points, and you're thinking he's not that kind of player. He's able to be that kind of player because he's got a guy like that. Same with Curry. Those guys aren't the players that they are unless they have that guy. See, we only look at dominance in one statistic. It's scoring. Now, last night, Giannis scores 50. And a lot of it is, if I said 50, you would say, my God, how many threes did he hit? How many pointers did he make? None. He hit 1 3 last night and scored 50 points. He shot the ball from inside the charge circle. I can't even count it because every single one of these green circles is on top of each other. So if you subtract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots, how many shots did he take last night? He only took 5 shots outside of the charge circle last night. So of the 5 points of his 20, so 20 shots he took from inside the charge circle. 20 from inside that circle. So you can't take the charge from in there. He gets so deep on you. And by the way, you take a look at the misses. Well, he ended up last night with 14 rebounds. Well, how does he end up with 14 rebounds? Because he misses half the shots he takes and just gets the rebound and puts it right back up. I'm not knocking him, but look, his game is not grace. It's determination. It's will. It's I want it more than you. And look, for somebody who appreciates Ben Simmons, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. Now, again, you say, well, I never see him be dominant. You need to check the tapes, buddy. I mean, come on. There's been nights where you're saying, all right, how come I can't get this guy more often? And it doesn't happen once, twice. It happens frequently. Just not as frequently as you want. Look, you go back and say Ben doesn't score enough. He averaged 17 points a game last year, 16 the year before. He averages 16 points a game in his career for a guy who barely looks to shoot. So somehow he's averaging 16 points a game in his career, right? Somehow he's got 16 points a game in his career. 15.9 is what his career average is. In 4 seasons, 15.9, and his first year was 14. This year was the lowest, 14 a game. Last year, 16.4. The year before that, 17. The year before that, 16. So you got to be pretty darn good to be able to score 17 points a game with no offensive game, no touch, and no offensive ability. right? Don't you? You can't just come into the league with no offensive ability, no touch, and no offensive skill set and score 16 points a game. Right? It's pretty impressive to be just a random dude who can't shoot and can't do anything and score 16 points a game. That right there shows you how good he really is by doing almost nothing. You can criticize for not working hard enough, not having the inner fire, not developing his game anymore. But what you can't say is the guy can't play or that he's just an average guy. You don't just walk into this league and score 16 a game by accident. And he does it without having any development of his game at all. Aren't you amazed by that? Right? Like, I'm amazed by Giannis that he scores 50 in a game where he makes 1 3. That to me is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's insanity. He scored 50 in a game that he shot 20 times inside the charge circle. Like, to me, that's unbelievable. Ben Simmons scores 16 points a game with zero aggression. He can't shoot. You know he's not shooting anywhere but where he shoots it from. He doesn't even attempt a three. He can't make free throws. And somehow we think he stinks and he scores 16 points a game. That, to me, makes him even better. Now, it would be fair to say, but I want more. And you would be right. You deserve more. We all deserve more. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Coming up at 3:40, Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report. There was a report on Dame Lillard on what he said and who's interested. We'll talk about that coming up in about 18 minutes from now. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. 326 on a Wednesday. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. There are so many messages in the video stream that I don't even know where to start and begin to pop those things up there. But I will try to go back through there and kind of put them up on the screen and comment on them throughout the show. The text board is open, 609-403-0973. Ryan in the Villas says, Gill, Joel is our Giannis and Ben is our Holiday. Ben has had a silver spoon in his mouth his whole life and has ego strokes since he was in junior high. He's content with mediocrity. Giannis appreciates everything and wants to bust his ass to show everyone he appreciates it and is going to show his fans and peers to strive to be better. Ryan, there's a lot of truth there. I agree. Ben doesn't have the inner fire that Giannis has. We totally agree on that. I think that is the one thing that Ben lacks more than anything. And we talk about, big games. These are Ben Simmons' highest scoring games in his career. 42, 34, 34, 32, 31, 31, 31, 29, 29, 29, 28, 28, 28, 27, 27, 27, 26, 26, 26, 26, 26, 25. I can get, so it's not like, people act like, well, he doesn't have these big games. He's had some big games. 42 points is a monster game. 34, 34, 32. 31, 31, 31, 29, 20. Those are big games. Those are big-time scoring nights. Put the video in of those games right there. Hey, let's sit down and watch what you did well against the Jazz, and let's find out why that happened. Let's check out why you put up 34 in a playoff game against the Nets. Why did that happen? Let's pop that tape in and do it. Let's see why you scored 34 against LeBron and the Lakers. Let's pop that tape in and check that out. Let's see why you scored 32. Let's see why you scored 31. Let's see why you scored 31 in another playoff game against the Nets. Why'd you score 31 in this game? Why'd you score 20? Let's pop those tapes in and show you what you did well in those games and see if that's something you're willing to kind of work on. Because if not, then I got to go to the report that came out yesterday regarding Dame Lillard. And that is this. And now we know earlier in the week, Dame Lillard denied a report that he's requesting a trade from the Blazers. He said, quote, "My intention in my heart is to be in a Blazers uniform my entire career. But over time, you want to win it all. However, in the event that Portland makes the decision to move Dame Lillard, the Sixers are among the teams that will be at the front of the line to make an offer for his services, according to Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer. Quote, multiple front office sources say the Heat, Kings, Knicks, Rockets, and Sixers have recently been the most aggressive suitors. Now, per the report, teams making an offer for Lillard may have to rival the haul the Nets gave up to acquire James Harden, which features multiple young players plus 3 first-round picks and first-round pick swaps. Any deal the Sixers make for Lillard will almost undoubtedly involve Ben Simmons and likely include either Tyrese Maxey and or Matisse Thybulle and multiple draft picks. Quote, the Sixers hope to enter the Lillard sweepstakes, not settle for C.J. McCollum, but there's pressure on the Sixers front office to maximize Joel Embiid's prime. And just like Simmons could be better in Portland, McCollum could be better in Philly. But as O'Connor points out, the Sixers front office may feel the need to make a blockbuster deal, like the Nets did, to maximize Joel Embiid's prime years, especially coming off a season where he's the runner-up for the NBA MVP award. So if you're going to show that tape to Ben Simmons of what did you do well in these games, you better have Joel Embiid sitting right next to him while he's watching it in the room. And make sure it gets through. Yo, see this? If you don't do this, you're out of here, pal. You have a 7'2" gentleman sitting next to you while you're watching that tape. (609-403-0973). You watched that game last night, and you see a guy. It wasn't Seth Curry coming off screens, shooting threes, lighting the world on fire. No, it wasn't. It wasn't Kevin Durant shooting from all over the court, threes, twos, taking the ball to the basket, getting to the foul line. No. It wasn't Kawhi Leonard with the ability to shoot threes, elbows, take it to the hole, get to the foul line. No. This was a one-dimensional offensive player last night who just simply wanted it more. And keep this in mind. He's their best offensive player. Now, he has a nice running mate in Chris Middleton, but he's still the best guy they have. The Sixers have a better guy. They have Joel Embiid. They have that guy. That's a big difference. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. All right, let me take a look at this video stream. There is a ton of back and forth going on here from everybody listening and watching the show. I'm trying to kind of go back to where I kind of lost track of some things here. Let's see. LeBron went to the Heat because he wanted to beat the Celtics' big three. Yeah, that's why he went there. It doesn't necessarily mean that was the only way to do it. You could have said, Chris Bosh, you want to come to Cleveland? How's that sound? You want to come to Cleveland? No. Hey, let's go to South Beach. That team's got Dwayne Wade on it. Let's try to do that. Let's see what else we got here. TJ says, I don't think it's a matter of questioning Giannis, but a matter of keeping the core, whoever that may be, intact and improving. I don't know what that was referencing to. He says, mentioned before, Giannis is playing harder and had a chip before both LeBron and Jordan did at this point. Trajectory is nothing, but if this team improves even more around him. I'm wondering how do the Bucks improve this more? Because they're going to need to. This team is not going to be able to stay intact the way it is. Right? They're not going to be able to keep this team like this and hope to win again. I think you got to get this team better. Kyle, I don't like this one. We drafted Holiday and hated him when he was here. We didn't hate Drew Holiday when he was here. Nobody hated Drew Holiday. Nobody asked for Drew Holiday to be traded. But people understood why Drew Holiday was traded. People understood it. They didn't ask for him to be traded. They weren't like, man, this guy sucks. Get him out of here. Nobody thought that. Now, I do agree that people were tired of Andre Iguodala, but not Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday was not hated while he was here. But when he was traded, it was well mapped out as to why he was traded. This is what we're trying to do, and people got on board with that. So how does that look now? I think it looks fine. I think the Sixers, if they would have had Drew Holiday, they would have been just another team stuck in the middle. You could say, well, they haven't got out of the second round. That's apples and oranges. There's a difference between disappointment and not caring. A big difference. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report is going to stop by with the latest on what's going on now that the offseason is here. Who's going to move? Who's out there? How can all this go down? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. The NBA season came to a close last night, and now the busy season gets here. Yes, the off season is finally here. Jake Fisher. We told you about Jake's book, which I'm almost finished reading. It's right here in my hand. Built to Lose, how the NBA's tanking era changed the league forever. And you can get your copy for the beach this summer. I think Jake is going to be vacationing at the beach. If you want him to sign it for you, he'll be at a Wawa near you. I kid. I don't know that Jake can hear me because I think he would be laughing at my stupid jokes right now. Maybe, maybe not. No, he can't hear me. I can see that. Oh, yeah, he said you can't hear me. Maybe we could try to get him on the audio there. Let me see if you can plug those things in. You got me now? Can you hear me now? He's I can hear him rustling around over there. So you got me? No, he doesn't have me. Maybe eject yourself out of this video, boom, like that, and see if we can put him back in and see if that will help him out there. You got me? No, he does not got me. All right, let's see if we can try to connect with him. There we go. He took himself out. And we'll see if we can't get him back in. That's the one hang up sometimes with the video stream is sometimes if we don't have a good connection. But you can check him out on the video. We'll try to get him back up there. He's got, of course, the book. It's called Built to Lose, How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. I'm about halfway done the book. I've been listening to it kind of up and down as I drive from here to there. Yep, I think I heard you. So one thing that he reported at Bleacher Report that I want to get into is he wrote the article about a week ago. He was on vacation last week, so we were going to try to have him on last week, but we got him back this week. NBA league insiders expect a flurry of sign-in trades this summer. And in that, he talks about the Clippers options. He talks about what the Lakers might do, but also, obviously, the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll get into that if we can connect here with Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report, who covers the league. And I want to get his thoughts on, what happened last night and where this means going forward and all that stuff with Giannis. I mean, is this going to be the way teams build the rest of the way? I don't say the rest of the way, but moving forward. Are teams moving forward going to be, more dependent or I shouldn't say teams, I should say superstars. Are they going to be more dependent or hopeful that their teams that drafted them are they going to be more patient? Are their teams are going to build around them? And I think that's individually different. Which organizations, right, are in it to win it, and which teams are there to make money, which teams don't care, which teams are well run. The whole Kevin Garnett thing, he didn't want to be in Minnesota. Right? So you look at, let me, there we go. All right, so we'll get Jake Fisher. We'll try to get him on the phone here. He's having a little problem with his mic situation in his camera. So we'll try to get him on the phone if we can and iron this out with him. But, our teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, where Giannis said, all right, I trust that you guys are going to get something done. I think you guys are going to be able to do some things around me. If you can't, then I'm out of here. No, he's like, not every team's like that. But the Milwaukee Bucks are a different situation. All right, I think we got Jake Fisher there. Now, you missed all my good jokes before you came on. You couldn't hear me.
I'm sorry, man, but now I have you. So we troubleshooted. I quit the browser, and here we are.
There we go. You figured it all out. So Jake is back. I told you his book is called Built to Lose, How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. I'm about halfway done.
Okay.
About halfway. It's been a long summer. I got some vacation time coming up. This will be with me on the beach. And I mentioned you'll be down at the beach. Maybe someone will run into you at a Wawa, and you can get an autographed copy at the Hoagie Fest.
Absolutely. I'll be there definitely Labor Day weekend and I think July 30th. So shoot me a tweet if you're down there. And yeah, we'll link up. I'll have a Sharpie on me and we'll give you a John Hancock.
Yeah. Check him out on the Ventnor Beach over there, on a Ventnor Beach near you, Jake Fisher. All right, Jake. So the season ends last night. Obviously, Giannis is the story. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, if that championship, Giannis drafted, stays there, no super team, changes the complexion, or is that the anomaly?
I don't think it changes the complexion at all. I mean, that's the goal of what tanking teams are trying to do, right? That they're trying to get their superstar through the draft and organically build it, and hope that player one day attracts other all-stars like Drew Holiday to stay there long term, and then they continue to build a complementary roster around that core, and they dip further and further into the postseason until they're lifting that trophy up at the end of the day. I think, where Milwaukee got really lucky was that Giannis fell to them at 15, and give them credit for taking him where they did. But, they thought Jabari Parker at number 2 in 2014 was going to actually be the face of that franchise and be the number 1 option on that team. It's a testament to Giannis that he did what he's done, and he's worked as hard, and he's saying it last night that, they're going to do it again next year. This guy's not satisfied. So I think, what it does do is it reaffirms that the personality and the intangibles about these guys and the intel that these scouts get behind the scenes is just as valuable in the draft and in targeting these superstars than their talent on the court.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, is that you wrote about this in the book. They could have had Joel Embiid at number 2. They decided to go a different direction. Can you imagine Joel Embiid and Giannis? I don't know that they could coexist on the same team, but that would have been kind of interesting, seeing what Giannis did last night. 20 of his shots came within the painted charge area. So they have made some mistakes along the way, but while they didn't tank to get Giannis, teams tank to get a Giannis.
Yes. And, I mean, the Atlanta Hawks were all over Giannis in that 2013 draft I wrote about in the book. They flew him covertly down to Phillips Arena at the time and put him up in Danny Ferry's house, their GM then. And, Milwaukee just – they were stealthy, that they kept their interest quiet, and they jumped in and selected him at 15. I think, he's also a testament that – team building is not a straight line. It's an indirect path where, there's going to be all these unforeseen variables that come into play. And they did not expect Giannis to even play for them that first year. They thought he was going to be in the D League, which was before the G League even became a thing, right? So, they get injuries to a lot of people. That's when Larry Sanders got in that fight in some bar and broke his hand and got suspended. But that gave him a lot of time to actually play and grow at that top level. And it really, springboarded him moving on to the future. So I think a lot of this stuff, a lot of building towards the future, just like with Philly, right? They did not think they'd be in the situation right now where Ben Simmons is potentially the biggest name available on the trade market in the NBA. They weren't giving him up for Kawhi Leonard back in 2019. So it's just building teams is all about kind of picking and choosing your spots and mitigating unforeseen variables that pop up along the way.
Jake Fisher over at Bleacher Report, you wrote a very good piece about how this summer could kind of shape up, and it could be the summer of the sign and trade. How prevalent might that be, and how prevalent will Daryl Morey be a part of that?
Well, I think with Daryl, it depends on, if Kyle Lowry is the answer, is the solution to figuring out this half-court creation hole that the Sixers have. And that's the only way to get Kyle Lowry. They don't have the cap space to sign him in free agency. He's looking for a big deal. So whether that be with Ben Simmons or, something else with sending back, a younger piece or future picks or whatever, that's the only route that Philly can get Kyle Lowry. But there's other situations too where, Danny Green, if he gets a pricey deal from somewhere else, maybe it's a number that he wants that, Miami or another team that thinks they're a contender wants to throw at him, but they only have a couple more. They don't have a couple million to spare because of their salary restrictions. Remember, the Heat did the same thing with Jimmy Butler and Josh Richardson, sending a deal back or a player back. So maybe even losing Danny Green could net a good replacement for Philly. There's a lot of options for Daryl to use that sign and trade clause to make this team better.
Is that their only way to get this team better, the sign and trade? Is that because they don't have money in free agency, they can't be a player there. So is the sign and trade Daryl Morey's really only move?
No, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are in on Ben Simmons. So far, I reached out to Minnesota and Cleveland, 2 teams that were rumored to have, made overtures for him, if you will. And I don't think a deal is getting done in either of those situations, where the Sixers are definitely pinpointing wanting to get another all-star caliber player back. Maybe that's a Karis LeVert. I've started to hear that he might be available in Indiana, but I think they're looking bigger. I think Darryl definitely, before I say this, I want to temper everyone's expectations, being that he's not available for trade yet, but I think Darryl's absolutely looking at Ben as an opportunity to go and get Damian Lillard. I think he is, but we're a long way away from that scenario unfolding. So I would expect Ben Simmons to be in the fold for Philly, deep into August, maybe even. I think this is going to be something maybe like that Andrew Bynum trade, not to give Philly fans PTSD, but that developed slowly after the Olympics, after, all-stars came back from playing overseas and realizing, I want this, I want that. So I think, the fireworks in Philly might take a couple of weeks. They might not happen in the very beginning of free agency.
If Daryl Morey, you mentioned Dame Lillard, does he settle and take a CJ McCollum? Does that make sense? Or is there a bigger fish? Or does he say, if I can't get the guy I want, I'll just bring Ben back?
Portland's in a very similar situation to Houston was with James Harden last year, where they know he wants probably out at the end of the day, but they're open to trying to make some moves to keep him there because he's at least slightly open to staying there too. So the biggest piece on the flip side of that potential Ben Simmons to Portland deal is Portland thinking that maybe they can move CJ McCollum to get something back to improve, the chances of keeping Dame. And I do think that is, like you mentioned, I think it's a pretty straight connection for both sides. I think CJ answers a lot of questions that Philly has, that half-court creation we talked about with Kyle Lowry. And sure, the defensive shortcomings of CJ are something that may limit his value, but that would also, I think, be attractive to Daryl, being that in a CJ for Ben framework, I think Portland has to give up more assets than Philly in that regard. So maybe that's appealing and intriguing for Daryl to use whatever comes back, whether it be a future first or something, or a second-round pick or whatever, to actually keep furthering improving Philly on the margins.
Jake Fisher's with us. He's got a great sign and trade article over at Bleacher Report. Check him out and check that out. Don't forget the book is Built to Lose, How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. And we saw two teams that, I don't know if you want to say tanked, but the Bucks were not very good one year. They had the number 2 pick. They missed there. What about the Suns and what's next for them? Because I don't know. Did they tank? Would you call them a tanking team?
Yeah, Phoenix absolutely tanked. They were very detailed in the book, being that, Ryan McDonough got hired right at the same time that Sam Hinkie did in Phoenix. And McDonough actually tanked, that made more tanky moves in that 2013 offseason before the 13-14 year more than Sam. He traded for Emeka Okafor, who had a herniated disc in his back. And, he was trying to target as many multiple first-round picks in that 2014 class with Embiid and Wiggins and Jabari as he could. They just ended up being a better team than they thought. And they got Devin Booker at 13 in 2015, but right back, they slid down the standings when they move on from Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe and so on and so forth. And they get DeAndre Ayton in 2018, number 1. And with those two guys, that's what drew the attention of Chris Paul. Chris Paul was not being traded to Phoenix unless the Suns had a real shot at signing him long-term after this season. And the only reason they do so is because Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are there. That's the key to tanking. It's getting superstars who can not only push you towards contention, but can also draw the eye of other players, other all-star caliber guys to try to join them as well.
All right, Jake Fisher, make sure you guys check out the book. We got about a month and a half left of this summer. I encourage you to do it. Built to Lose, How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. And check out Jake. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at Jake L. Fisher. That's how you can find out how to get the book, Amazon, wherever you guys get books. I actually listen to the book, actually, while I'm driving to work. That's how I'm hearing the book. That's why I'm only halfway done so far. I only work 5 minutes from my office, but I got the vacation time coming up. I will finish that book by the next time we talk, Jake. All right, man?
Thank you, Mike. Always a pleasure to join you, man.
Appreciate it. Good stuff from Jake. As the sign and trade market, as he mentioned there, Ben Simmons, Portland. I told you about the report that Portland, obviously, Sixers are one of the teams that is most aggressive. Not a surprise. But Jake just mentioned, don't expect something until late into August. Football at 4, the latest on Zach Ertz, coming up next. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Jeff Mosher is here as we are less than a week from Eagles training camp getting underway. Tomorrow, the Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers, Tampa Bay Bucks will be on the field. And on Tuesday, the Eagles will be back. Jeff Mosher, what's going on, my friend?
How you doing, Mike? What's going on? I'm getting excited for training camp as well.
I am too. I am really ready for this because there's so much going on. We've chronicled a lot over the last couple of weeks of the summertime, some stuff that's happening. And I guess today there's a little bit of news out there. According to Eagles sideline reporter Howard Eskin, there's a great chance that Zach Ertz will be back. I don't know if that's huge news, but he kind of suggests that not only will he be back, that he will be there at the start of the season, which would kind of indicate, hey, he's going to start the season on this roster, it sounds like.
Yeah, and we've talked about that in the past week or so, Mike. This is not like a holdout when a player is disappointed with his contract and doesn't want to play under it. The money that Zach is going to make, $8.5 million, I believe it is on the books, is fine with Zach Ertz. That's good money for him right now. So he has all the reasons in the world to show up to training camp and to, collect the paycheck and see what happens and force the Eagles issue. I don't think anything has changed as far as the Eagles' plans for him. I don't think that they want him on the team, but they don't want to just give him up for nothing. And so if they're hoping that an injury results somewhere else that they can deal Zach Ertz and get better value, fine, but how are you going to have Zach Ertz report to camp and not get him risk of injured in the process? So yeah. I think the telltale sign will be when Zach Ertz reports to camp, what is he doing on the field compared to what everybody else is doing?
Well, I guess the part of Eskin's report that, I guess needs to be questioned, not questioned about his reporting, it's questioned on reading the tea leaves here, is Ertz is over the issues he had with the team after it was reported he wanted the contract extension. So essentially, Ertz is like, kumbayas, let's run this thing back, baby. Do you feel that seems to jive with you?
I certainly can understand Zach Ertz wanting to put last year in the past. It's hard to get by the image, though, of him and Jason Kelce and Carson Wentz in that season finale against Washington, just hanging out there for quite a while after the game, all probably pondering, what's going to become of their futures. And obviously Carson's not here. Jason Kelce is, but, Jason Kelce's a starter. Jason Kelce got a new deal, more money. Zach Ertz, nothing changed. And this team has Dallas Goedert, and this coaching staff, this new coaching staff, wants to, create an offense that has a lot of yards after the catch guys with Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor. And certainly Dallas Goedert is a guy they've talked about a contract extension with. He has said that. He is a good run after the catch tight end. So nothing to me has really changed philosophically in how Zach Ertz fits. And does Zach Ertz want to be a backup for this team? I would think not, because if Zach Ertz's plan is to play beyond this year, he's going to want to get on the field as much as possible and show his next team that he's still a pretty good tight end who's worth signing to a contract, a long-term deal after this year, or maybe not a long-term deal, but 2 or 3 for a decent amount of money. And being a backup doesn't really help you in that regard.
Well, right. I mean, so you're bringing up some interesting conversation here. Does Zach Ertz, all of a sudden, did he sit down with Nick Sirianni and Sirianni says, hey, I have a great role for you, 8.5, don't worry about that, we'll take care of you, blah, blah, blah. Or is he just kind of in the way all of a sudden? I mean, does he become what Alshon Jeffrey was to Fulgham, but Sirianni is willing to play Goddard over him? I mean, I feel like this is an interesting crossroads here, don't you?
Yeah, it's an interesting crossroads, and I see the Alshon Jeffrey comparison a little bit. If he's on the team, how do you shoehorn him into the right role? Again, though, that's they're in a different spot this year. They know they're kind of building up towards something different, and it's not like last year where they had Super Bowl visions and then it all just came crumbling down. And Alshon was there and he was making a certain amount of money. It's pretty clear going back to earlier in this offseason when there were almost some times that you felt Zach Ertz was going to be dealt. That the team wants to move on without Zach Ertz. Did I lose you?
Mosh is just sitting there waiting for me. There we go. So
I don't know what happened there.
it was on our end.
Okay.
On our end here, which is rare. This is the first time we've ever got just completely bounced out like that. The fact that you were mentioning the situation between Jeffrey and Fulgham, is this going to be a similar situation? But the Sirianni handle it differently.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that last year was just a terrible year where they did start off the year with Super Bowl visions and Alshon was hurt. And I don't know why they felt, I guess, because of the money that he was making, that they had to play him, even though they were well out of it. Well, they really weren't statistically out of it, but nobody really thought that they were going to do anything last year. I can't even imagine them wanting to repeat that same mistake and going through with it this year. I really do feel like this thing is going to have to reach a different conclusion sometime in the next few weeks than just keep him on the roster and see what happens. It just does not make schematic sense. It doesn't make financial sense. It doesn't make where the Eagles are in their development sense right now. Nothing about it makes sense.
Right. And not to mention, I mean, yeah, can you say, look, Zach Ertz is a great player and that he can help you this year? Sure, he's going to make but it's like you already have Dallas Goedert. Are they going to run it too tight on offense? I mean, does he clunkify? Is that a word? Clunkify the offense?
You know what? Shakespeare made up a lot of words in his day, Mike. So if you want to put yourself in that company, that's fine. You're Shakespearean with that. I do think he clunkifies the offense because, again, I believe that this staff wants to have a nice vertical run after the catch type of offense, and they want to obviously go forward with Dallas Goedert and put him in that spotlight. He's going to be your number one tight end, and that makes it very clunky for Zach Ertz. But let me also add that while we talk about the Eskin report, it seems to reek of positivity, right? Like a kumbaya of sorts. And if only there was some recent historical precedent that we could go to where the Eagles were saying one thing about a player that they wanted to move on in the media, but the different thing happens. Oh, wait, it was probably just February where Howie Roseman said he could not imagine Carson Wentz being on another team, and he was like fingers on a hand. You just can't imagine not having them. And then all of a sudden, poof, Carson Wentz was traded. So just take everything that you see with a grain of, and I'm not saying Howard's report is wrong because it doesn't really say anything that's illogical. He's going to show up. It makes sense that he should show up. But I'm just saying, like, I would not interpret it as everything is now different. I think it's the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, in the report, Eskins tweets that Ertz is over the issues that he had with the team from last year, which, you know, it says he's been working out in the team facility for close to the last 2 weeks with teammates. I mean, did he just get around everybody and decide, you know what, did Giannis inspire him last night to the point like, I want to win where I was drafted? You know what I mean? Like, this seems to be, but sometimes, like you say, it's a lot of positivity, and that would come from the team. But what if Ertz didn't jive with that? If he was like, what are you talking about? I'm not over the issues. I want my contract. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it works in Zach's favor to also put on a good face about this and work with the teammates and not make a stink because, you know, if you're trying to send a message to other teams that you're not just he's not getting cut and he's not going to be available for nothing, then you try to present the picture of a guy who's completely fine and the organization's good with it. I mean, they've got to work together on this if it's going to happen. And, you know, Zach has probably come to grips with and gotten over is the fact that Howie's just not going to cut him and get nothing for it. So he could make a big stink about it and it could get ugly, but that's not going to change or make Howie want to cut him anymore.
You don't think that he got a bruised ego, do you? That, hey, nobody wants me, or I'm only being offered for a 6th or 7th round pick, so I'll just stay here and prove everybody wrong. Or I'll try to produce and see if I can get myself traded by halfway through the season.
No, I still think he thinks something will happen before the season. But at this point, you have to stay in shape. You have to be ready. You've got the resources here in Philadelphia, and it's not like you ever had any issues with his teammates. So I think he's just doing what a player would normally do to stay in shape and be ready.
Right. I mean, because you mentioned it. On the season finale, basically, he's sitting on the sideline. He has this postseason press conference saying that he doesn't want to be traded, but he kind of reads the writing on the wall. You know, you've had all these reports throughout, you know, hey, something could happen. The draft comes and goes. And then they're not in a rush. Oh, we're not just going to give him away for nothing. And then the next thing you know, I think you guys were the ones that reported that the Eagles would possibly move him by the end of the draft. And then the next thing you know, he decides to skip the voluntary workouts, and here we are. And then now all of a sudden he's happy. This one seems like it could still have a bunch of different. This is like the Truman Show, trying to figure out how to get off that island.
Yeah, honestly, if it's a it should feel like a typical Eagles story. I mean, we kind of went through a similar ordeal with Wentz. Are they going to trade him? It seems close. Then it was like that agonizing week before it actually happened, and people started to believe it wasn't going to happen. This is part and parcel with the Eagles.
Another thing is, Moshe, okay, so you ask yourself, what did Ertz realize in this situation? What hit him? Did his agent call around and realize, I'm not getting you any more offers, dude? 8.5 is the best you're going to get, and it's here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, 8.5 seems not so bad right now. Maybe a year and a half ago he wanted more, but for being a backup tight end, that's a pretty darn good price tag, right? I mean, $8.5 million to play 30% of the snaps. Who knows what the plan would be? Is not bad. The question is, does he want out so bad that he's willing to restructure his deal? I probably wouldn't want to do that if I were him, right? Because if you take, first of all, you don't want to take a pay cut. Secondly, you want to still just have 1 year left and not have a team kind of kick money down the road like the Eagles do, because then they have money on the books that you're responsible for. So they may want to keep you, and you may want to just be a free agent next year. So it's a difficult situation where he wants to make 8.5 because he could get hurt and never get a chance to make any of that money again. But he doesn't want to spread that. I'm not speaking for him. I wouldn't want to have my money, my 8.5, kind of spread out over somebody else's books where they have the ability to retain me in 2022 and 2023, because I want to be a free agent again, hoping I have a good year and make more than $8.5 million.
Well, I guess the thought process for both sides here, and this is risky, is that he plays well in maybe limited reps or whatever role they give him, and then teams start calling for a trade.
That's the risk of it, and we'll see if it gets that far. I'm skeptical of it. I don't believe it'll get that far. If I'm wrong, I will be the first person to admit it. I have to take into account that this is a man who almost died on the football field, 3 or 4 years into his career in that training camp where he had that punctured lung thing that almost touched his heart, right? I mean, so I don't blame him 1 second for wanting to collect every single cent that is on his contract.
Well, we had heard, John Clayton was on with us way back towards the draft and said, yeah, Seattle's interested, but they're not giving up a 3rd or 4th round pick, which is what Philadelphia fixated on. So I guess there is a point that somebody would be interested. Now, the 8.5, I guess at this point, is a problem for teams because they're into training camp and their books are pretty much set. That's where I think the rub comes on making a trade at this point.
I would agree with that. It becomes complicated, but as we have seen with the Eagles, with other teams, there's way to free up money. And there's way to free up money and also ensure that, if you're doing some kind of contract restructure, that, you're guaranteed after this first year that you're not going to be on the team the next year, and have that kind of, made very obvious in the contract. So there's ways it can be done. I mean, look, we know that the Eagles had some pretty extensive talks, and deal was almost done around the draft. So we know it can be done.
No doubt. Jeff Mosher, football at 4, something to keep an eye on because obviously Ertz is a highly popular player. He was a highly productive player for the most part. And what's to say he doesn't come in here and is Zach Ertz again? That's another thing that we're not considering maybe.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that Zach is probably not as bad as people think he is now. I mean, I watched a lot of tape last year in the first few weeks before he got hurt. I thought that there were some opportunities where he could have made big plays and the ball just either didn't come to him or was not thrown very well. So, but the tape did show also kind of some difficult body language, a little slowing, which may have been from the ankle. I mean, I'm not saying he's a guy who can still catch you 90 balls a year like he was doing a few years there. But I certainly think for some of those teams that you mentioned, Mike, like Seattle or New England or Baltimore likes 2 tight ends, this guy could be a very serviceable number 2 tight end and probably make some big plays for you on 3rd down when you need him.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we all love to be the armchair GM and look at, hey, Arizona needs a tight end, and they have Jordan Hicks. Why don't you just call them and make a swap? Or, I know New England signed a couple tight ends in the offseason, but, Zach Ertz, it's tough to top what Zach Ertz could possibly bring, and Gilmore wants to get out of there. Or, hey, what about Howard down in Miami? They've got Gesicki down there, but, hey, that seems unrealistic, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but you never know. I mean, you would think if it was easy enough to do player for player, then maybe it would be done by now. So you don't see too many of those trades anymore, player for player.
We go back to the, and everybody's kind of thinking that this might be how they fixed the corner situation, the
Right.
Jordan Matthews for Ronald Darby trade that they made in 2017.
Yeah. But that was really a third-round pick for Ronald Darby with Jordan Matthews kind of as the throw-in. To be fair, I mean, look, I know that bothers people, but that's the reality of it. It was Jordan's last year of his deal, and so that meant he was a rental for a year, and he was only a certain type of receiver. I mean, that's like, the Eagles traded Marcus Robinson and a fifth-round pick for Michael Bennett, right? It wasn't going to get done with Marcus Robinson alone. Obviously, Seattle wanted draft compensation. So maybe something can be worked out with Zach Ertz and another player, but there's probably going to have to somewhere be some type of draft compensation involved.
I would imagine that yesterday's tweet from Steven Nelson hasn't been rectified yet. Has he signed today or
Now,
tomorrow?
what happened? He deactivated his account, right, and then reactivated it with the deleted tweet.
Well, he tweeted today or tomorrow. It was something to that effect, like today or tomorrow, stay tuned.
Right.
I didn't see any follow-up. I'm imagining he didn't sign yesterday or today.
Well, what happened was, I don't know if you noticed, but he deactivated his Twitter account. And everybody was like, what happened? And then he reactivated at some point today, and then he deleted that tweet. So that tweet is no longer viewable.
Right. And he was following the Eagle. He had followed the Eagles.
Yes, yeah. So, listen, I have nothing other to report on this other than I would say he probably thought he had a deal with somebody and it was going to happen. And then maybe it kind of fell through at the 11th hour there and the money wasn't what he thought and yada, yada. I'm just speculating here, but yeah. I don't know what else would cause a guy to put the flag up, like saying something's going to happen. And then all of a sudden his account is deactivated.
I love how we have to read the tea leaves on people's social media accounts to try to figure out what possibly could happen.
Almost as bad as Ben Simmons' workout videos.
On his birthday, no less, right? Happy birthday. I'm in the gym. Don't question me.
That's right.
Over at InsideTheBirds.com, you and Andrew have been debating different storylines. So the latest one is the backup running back spot. Which team were you on?
So it's strange because my I think from a talent level, I would say Team Kerryon Johnson. There's a reason he was a second round pick and he has had success, but there's something about Jordan Howard's ability to appeal to no other team but the Eagles, who keep trade for him, bring him back, brought him back last year after averaging 1.2 yards per carry with Miami. That makes me think that they see something in him. They like him in the locker room, or there's just something about him that they feel is better off here. And of course, Kerryon has to stay healthy. That's been an issue for him. So while I would want to be in the Kerryon Johnson camp because I think he's the better overall player, there's something about this competition that makes me think at the end of the day, Jordan Howard's going to live again.
And then Boston Scott's in there with the rookie fifth-round pick. What the heck's his name?
Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenneth Gainwell. So
listen, this is a guy who's got a really good chance to not only make the team but compete early on, as long as things don't overwhelm him. We see that with rookies; they have great camps, right? Then they go week one. Miles Sanders had that issue his rookie year for the first few weeks, but I just know that the team was really fond of what they saw of him, even in the relaxed kind of OTAs, and they've got plans for him if he can handle the workload.
Jeff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. When we talk to Jeff next, it will be the eve of Eagles training camp, and we will take a look at it all. Tomorrow, Adam Kaplan is here. On Friday, Andrew DeCecco previews the NFC East, and then the next time Andrew is back, it will be the start of Eagles training camp. It is here, Jeff Mosher. It is here. And by the way, the Eagles open up the preseason on Thursday, August the 12th. So that is almost here as well. Jeff, All right, man.
We made it through another offseason. Still managed to talk football every day. It's amazing, right?
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. All right, have a good one.
At Jeff Mosher NFL, yes, football at 4 every day, 4 o'clock. It's like mandatory Metallica, right? Some of these rock stations, they play like Led Zeppelin every night at 9 o'clock or something like that. They still do that? We do football every day at 4 o'clock. Tell your friends. Can you imagine turning on something else at 4 o'clock rather than listening to football at 4? That would be a terrible decision. I mean, literally, who would make such a bad decision? We give you football every day at 4 o'clock. It's the greatest thing in the history of sports talk radio. Sports Bash, live, 97.3, ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, something else we do for you that nobody else does. We give you live video. You can watch the show live. There's nobody else in this marketplace doing that. Come on. You can watch a show every day live and be a part of the show. Multiple ways. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, live video. Text board 609-403-0973. You can tap the app and use the mobile app text function. Very easy to do. Just open up the app, and right on the app, there's a button that says text us. You can hit that button and send a text. It'll get right to the studio. It is thundering really loud. Like I'm fearful of this room like exploding or blowing up or something. Yeah, use the free mobile app text function, and you can text the studio. You can text the text board. There's so many ways to do it. And I appreciate all of you. You have a lot of choices out there. We understand it. And the people who make the choice to utilize this platform every single day, man, we appreciate you. All right, coming up, do you remember Kevin Durso, Jeff Kerr? We're still busy. Don't go away. Sports Bash. Do you remember the day is July 21st? I'm Mike Gill. My producer's Josh Henning. We will take a look at events that happened on this day. You'll remember that we teased something that will happen that happened on this day yesterday. Hopefully, for those of you who are listening, remember, because that will be coming up. By the way, you'll remember that next year we'll talk about Giannis scored 50 points and had 14 rebounds and won the MVP in his first NBA Finals. You know, making him a multiple MVP and Finals MVP participant. He's the 9th player to do it. The only other person to do it at age 26 or younger, Tim Duncan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, guys, can we pump the brakes on the Sixers and their players needing to win immediately? Yes, we want them to win. Yes, it's frustrating, but it's also somewhat unrealistic in the grand scheme of things. All right? Can we just cometh thy, you know the rest of the line from people out there.
That's being hopeful, Mike.
Yeah. Although I'm frustrated. It should be frustrating. You watched them win last night. You want to say, hey, we want to win too. We want to be right there.
Sure, of course it's what you want, but at the same time, you have to realize that how few people actually do win championships. And it's not like it's this, variety of names. Look through NBA history. There's literally every decade a handful of superstar players who win every year.
Yeah, I went through the list earlier. It was LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Curry, Dirk. That's all you got.
This is the first NBA Finals since the mid-2000s that have not had either LeBron, Kobe, Kawhi, or Steph in it. That in and of itself should tell you how hard it is to do this.
Now, Kawhi did it for 2 different teams.
Right.
So did LeBron. Actually, LeBron did it for 3
Three
different
teams.
So it tells you it doesn't
team.
matter so much the team, it's more the player.
Right, so...
Hey, by the way, Budenholzer, who was a total boob,
he's got a ring.
Fired. He's now, I can't fire him now, right?
Everyone hated him. Now he's got a ring.
Right, and Monty Williams, who was the greatest coach of all time, did the coach matter in this series?
Hey, Popovich hasn't been to the playoffs without Tim Duncan.
Oh, I've told you the Popovich stuff. It's
I'm
amazing.
just throwing it out there.
The coach, does he matter? Does the coach matter? Last night, Mike Budenholzer, who was the worst coach in the league, according to the Coach Matters crowd, he won the title last night. And the coach who everybody loved and thought he was great lost.
The coach of the year this year was Tom Thibodeau, by the way.
There you go. It's raining really hard out.
It really is. It's incredible.
Holy moly. 2004, in one of the most notable instances of Manny being Manny Ramirez cuts off the relay throw from Johnny Damon. It allows a 2-run inside the park home run at Fenway Park. Do you remember?
I do remember this only because that was when Damon was still playing with the Red Sox. So he had that awesome beard and long hair look. They had to shave off when he went to the Yankees, which was one of the stupidest rules in baseball. The Yankees, everyone's clean shaven. Such a dumb rule. Let the guys be themselves.
Well, you choose to play for the Yankees.
No, you choose the money and you sacrifice your independence as a result.
Hey, you have the choice to not choose to go there.
Yeah.
If you want the money so bad, you conform to the rules, my friends.
You do. It's still
I don't have any problem with you making the choice. You sell your soul to do that.
Oh, it's
and
definitely
that,
selling your soul.
Right, you could take a couple extra bucks if you want to keep your long hair and your beard.
You could.
Yeah.
I would, but I'm not a baseball player.
I'd shave my beard off in a second for the kind of money he got.
If you get to let's say remember the Yankees and the Red Sox were both competing for Damon, and the Yankees outbid him. Would you have taken, I don't know, $5 million less per year to stay with the Red Sox team that won the World Series? Or would you have taken the money and gone to New York?
It's hard to answer that. Is $5 million in that world like $25,000? What's the equivalent? If you get I once got a.
I know the taxes are more in New York than Massachusetts.
Right? Yeah. Well, the taxes and all this stuff. But I once got a $20,000 raise. Okay. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh, that sounds great. And then at the end of the day, you look at your paycheck and realize That's not much. So in that world, is a $5 million raise really worth changing where you want to be?
That's the question I always ask. What is it really worth?
Like, to put it this way, I once got offered a job for $25,000 more. Okay? But I had to move someplace that I was not all that thrilled about.
Okay.
And in the end, I said $25,000 just isn't enough money for me to say, yes, I want to make that move.
What were the taxes like from there to here? Was there a difference?
You know what? I didn't even look at that.
See, that's always the first thing I think of when it comes to these athletes because, places like New York and California, the income taxes are so much more.
Yeah, it wasn't New York or California. Actually,
it doesn't matter where it is. The point is that, the state income tax to me should matter to some of these guys because, okay, maybe the Lakers, the Knicks can give you money, for example, in the NBA, but you're going to lose a huge chunk of that to taxes.
Now, on the flip side, I once got offered a job that I got offered X amount, and I said, well, can I was negotiating, and I said, well, can we actually do it for this much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never heard back from them. The next thing you know, I ended up here for $25,000 less than I asked for at that place. That one I lost. Now, in the end, I recouped.
Right.
But
on the back end, right.
Somewhere down the line, I recouped. But you're saying that for $5 million, I don't know what if I made, I don't know, Johnny Damon was making what in Boston?
I'll pull up his exact numbers real quick.
If he's making $15 million, do I care about $5 more million? Probably not. If I like Boston and I'm happy there, that's the kind of person I am, though. Some people just want to me, I could care less if I worked out a deal and I'm getting paid $25 million and then some guy gets $28 million. I don't really care that you're making $3 million more than I am. That doesn't bother me in the least bit.
Wow, I'm actually semi-impressed with myself. It literally is almost a $5 million difference from Boston to New York. He went from $8.25 million to $13 million.
Yeah, if I was making $8.35 million, I think I'm okay. I don't think I need that money. I don't think I need the extra $5. But I'm not in that world. I don't know.
And that's what I mean. Is $5 million going from a state that has less income tax, which is either the higher income tax bracket, you're not really making that $5 million difference. You might actually be cut even at that point.
Probably right. Like I said, they said, hey, we're offering you 25,000 more than you're making, and I said, yeah, but I got to move to your city, which sucks.
Well, also, what's the cost of living in that city? That cost of living might be more.
It's less. It was less.
Okay, well, that is something to consider.
Yeah. Oh, I would have been making more money.
Okay, so
in the end, I would have. They're going to pay me $25,000 more.
You're netting more money, but the quality of life.
I didn't want to live in that city.
Right, that's a problem.
It wasn't for $25,000. It wasn't worth me moving
living
there. That's my point. For $5 million, is it worth you moving
from Boston to
cutting
New York,
your hair and shaving your beard and moving?
Exactly.
Now, New York's not a terrible place to live.
No, but what's the difference between New York and Boston?
I don't know. Did he like Boston? Did he want to live in Boston? That's the thing. For $5 million, if you really love Boston, you just stay in Boston, is my point.
I mean, I'm looking at his life history. He went to high school in Florida. He was born in Kansas, so he has no tie to either city from his childhood.
He started in Kansas City, right?
Well, I mean, it's like before baseball. He's born in Kansas. He went to high school in Florida, so he has no real tie to New York or Boston. So it's just
he won a World Series in Boston,
right? So why don't you just stay in Boston? Right. Such a strange decision to me. What else happened today?
2007, 42-year-old Bernard Hopkins wins over Winky Wright. He ended his 7.5-year unbeaten streak with a unanimous decision. Now, whatever happened to Winky? He was 7.5 years unbeaten, and then he just went away.
I want to look up Winky right now. Now I have the Google in front of me.
2013, Phil Mickelson wins the Open Championship. He birdied 4 of his last 6 for the final round, 5 under 66. It matches the best round of the tournament. The win gave Lefty his first ever British Open win, moving him 1 win shy of the career Grand Slam. And then the one that I teased yesterday, one of the biggest events of all time, happened on this day in 1989.
Right.
You know it?
No, but I can tell you that Phil Mickelson, the thing Winky Wright, one of the things on Google says, what happened to Winky Wright? That's one of the top search things with Winky Wright. He now plays golf for full time.
Good for him.
After he lost to Bernard Hopkins, he had 2 more fights, and he said, I had no more fight in me, and I want to spend the rest of my life playing golf.
Good for him.
So now you know.
On this day, 1989, Buster Douglas, a 40-1 underdog, won the heavyweight championship with a 10th round knockout of Mike Tyson at the Tokyo Dome. I remember it vividly. I remember watching it. I remember the whole thing. I remember where I was, the whole 9 yards.
Where were you?
Now, at the time, I was living in Ventnor, and I was watching it with, at the time, my stepfather. We watched that fight together in the master bedroom. I was sitting on the floor. It was dark in the room. We had the fight on, and Mike Tyson, we're watching it because it's late at night,
Right, it's in Japan.
and couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because I'm a young guy. I'm like 12, 13 years old. Mike Tyson just kicked everyone's ass. You just couldn't believe it.
Right, and to see someone taking it to Tyson was shocking.
When we come back, the Flyers' options have all been ruined. We'll tell you why next. All right, the NHL expansion draft was supposed to be tonight at 8 o'clock. We weren't supposed to have the answers to many of these questions, but apparently we do. We have the details right now with Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com, as he joins us here on the Sports Bash. And, you wrote this great piece about all the different possibilities, three great possibilities, or three, not great possibilities, but three possibilities. None of them happened.
Yeah, that article lasted about 2 hours, didn't it?
Reportedly.
Yeah, reportedly. I mean, I have on good authority that it is Carson Twarynski. It's going to be the pick tonight. So that really is probably going to happen. What we don't know when it comes to a lot of these picks from a lot of the teams out there that are being reported is whether or not there's side deals involved with any of them. There could be. We might not find all of that out tonight, to be honest. Some of these side deals could come in the days to come. I think that once the roster freeze for the rest of the league is over at 1 o'clock tomorrow and everybody's allowed to kind of get back to work, I think that there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. It sounds like there's just a lot brewing right now and everyone's hands are tied until this is all over with. But Seattle has really not taken a lot of big names that were out there. And it doesn't just this doesn't just involve the Flyers at this point. This involves everybody. I mean, we were talking about Tarasenko from St. Louis. Gabriel Landeskog was available from Colorado. Nashville had Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson available. Carey Price from Montreal. And they're all going to stay where they were because Seattle's trying to hold on to as much cap space as they can to have some leverage here to be players when it comes to free agency, when it comes to making maybe trades with these other teams. So it certainly seems like this is kind of anticlimactic for now, but it could lead to a lot of things in the near future.
It's funny because you mentioned that article. It got over 5,000 views in the 2 hours that it was relevant. So good job.
I'll take that.
People were obviously interested in what was going to happen here. So Carson Twarynski, tell us about why he's the pick and who he is.
Well, he's a former third-round pick of the team and, kind of came into the picture. He didn't make his NHL debut during Dave Haxtell's time here, but he was drafted during that time. So that's kind of an interesting little tie in there. But he debuted and made the team out of camp 2 seasons ago. Some people may remember as that season kind of got underway and we started to see signs that the Flyers could be a different team that year, building toward the success they had when they made it deeper into the playoffs than we'd seen in a long time. Twarynski was on the roster at the very beginning, scored his first NHL goal in the 3rd game of the season that year in Vancouver, and then kind of bounced back and forth between the minors and the NHL level. And he's kind of been this guy who gets called up a lot when injuries make it necessary, but he hasn't really stuck at the NHL level yet. Maybe this is an opportunity for him. Maybe this is Seattle just saying, look, we need depth at all areas. And that's going to include whoever, the minor league development team is, things like that. They're going to need to have guys who they can call up when they need it as well. So certainly in that case, it doesn't help the Flyers at all because it doesn't even apply to the cap at the moment. But it's what Seattle has to do to completely build a roster, which doesn't just include guys who are going to start the season as members of the Seattle Kraken, but also in the minor leagues as well.
Yeah, so Voracek was one, JVR, Gostisbehere. It appears that all three of those guys would be back. So what does that mean for Philadelphia now?
Well, I'm not going to assume that all three are going to be back just yet because there's certainly a lot of time to go in this busy portion of the offseason. And if not now, then this weekend when the draft is going on and all teams are talking, and certainly as free agency begins, you could see more activity. I think that at least what I can say about some of these guys, and I'll dip into the other 2 guys that I mentioned in the article too, Justin Braun and Robert Haig as well, because I think that I look at most of those guys and I sit there and go, James Van Riemsdyk is a guy who I think that in reality, you're not necessarily heartbroken that Seattle didn't take him. I think you look at him and still see value for him, and he had a really good, productive season last year, all things considered with how bad you played. Robert Haig's got a role on this team, probably as a 7th defenseman. Justin Braun is a fit for the 3rd pairing. I think you actually kind of are relieved that he didn't get taken because he can be a mentor for a guy like Cam York. Jake Voracek's an interesting one because you certainly have a place for him on the roster. You know what you're going to get from him every year, point production wise. I think that the 2 things that revolve around him with this team is, one, he's been a part of the core for so long that kind of would be a changing of the guard, that it would kind of show even more of a shakeup than just trading Phil Myers and Nolan Patrick to bring in a Ryan Ellis and start your changes. I think moving a guy like that really shakes up the locker room a little bit. And also the fact that he has the same mentality as a lot of these other guys. Voracek playing with a Claude Giroux, for example, they're both more of the playmaking type. So if you had a guy who thought shot first and played alongside Claude Giroux, it could totally elevate Giroux's game even at his age because it's a different mindset. Instead, you kind of got the same thing for right now. The guy who really is curious to me is Gostisbehere, though, because I just don't know where he fits on this team right now, because I think that you need his money at this point. I think that that's the goal, is you need to try to open up his cap so that you can make some of the other moves you need to. You have $9.3 million, as I mentioned in the article, that you can utilize for the rest of the offseason, but you have two guys that you need to sign, and that's Carter Hart and Travis Sanheim. And they're not going to demand the most money, but with only $9.3 million to work with, they're going to demand a decent amount of that for sure. If you can open up the money for Gostisbehere, the $4.5 million that he's owed, then you might have maybe again another $7 million if you hold on to maybe $2 to $3 million on the cap already that you have and add the 4.5. You might have about $7 million, and you could probably at the very least address backup goalie and the second pairing defenseman and at least fill a couple more holes on this team through free agency or maybe trying to make another trade. But you're kind of tight right now, so definitely moving money is part of the plan. They're going to have to find a way to do it somehow, and it didn't come from Seattle, at least in the moment. Maybe there's a deal to be had in the coming days.
Yeah, so over at 97.3 ESPN.com, you wrote that Seattle selects a big contract. That didn't happen. Seattle selects Braun or Haig. You just mentioned that did not happen. They work a side deal with the Flyers. Can they still do something tonight, 8 o'clock? This draft's going to happen. Is stuff still kind of going on?
Certainly when it comes to side deals. Now, I don't know if a side deal is going to be involved when you're talking about a player like Carson Twarynski, because that just seems like kind of a low-end pick. Not something that if a team is saying that that's the guy they really want to have on the roster, that you're going to kind of argue with them over and try to make a deal. You're just going to kind of accept it. I wonder if Seattle, though, could play a role with the cap space they have, and I think a lot of teams around the league are exploring this, where teams are making negotiations and trades or trade possibilities and using Seattle kind of as a middleman here and making it 3-team deals that way, kind of like what we saw in a weird way with the Nolan Patrick, Ryan Ellis, Phil Myers deal, where you had Phil Myers go and Nolan Patrick go to Nashville, but then Nashville flips Nolan Patrick and gets Cody Glass from Vegas, so Vegas gets involved. You might have to do that. So that stuff could be coming out for the next few days. That could definitely pick up into Thursday, definitely at the draft. I think this is going to be almost, I wonder if the draft is going to be less about the picks that are being made, because nobody really knows much about the prospects in this draft. There wasn't a lot of action to go see some of these kids. I almost wonder if it's going to be less about the prospects and more about the trades that are made.
Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, 97.3 ESPN.com. So what's going to happen at 8 o'clock tonight?
Well, they say there's this long list of guests that are going to be part of this showcase here. I just read something on Twitter not too long ago about how the league is not, or ESPN's not happy about this, and kind of what you have to look at is go, you know what, people are just doing their jobs and putting out there what they find out. The league, if anything,
Sir Molly killed everybody. Yeah,
he did, and he does a great job. Obviously, he's one of the top sources for a lot of people when it comes to reporting certain things like this. You know, I almost wonder, I saw a suggestion that someone even put on Twitter. It said something along the lines of, you know, if the NHL ever gets a 33rd team, maybe announce the new expansion roster like an hour after the picks are submitted. So there's not all this time in between. You went from 10 a.m. trying to get to 8 o'clock. We knew half the roster by noon.
Yeah,
it was kind of crazy.
With that, were there any surprises? Was there anything that kind of got knocked off guard? I mean, I know Frank was tweeting out all day. I mean, Frank, by the way, used to cover the Flyers here locally, and did our show a lot when he covered the Flyers, and then he went national for TSN in Canada, and now he's the Daily Faceoff? He just
Daily Face, but which, by the way, great resource for fantasy hockey players, and I guess also for bettors in a way, because you can find out who your goalie is that night. They're really good at keeping up with that type of stuff, so it's a great resource. Yeah, I don't know if there was anything overly surprising per se. I think the surprising thing was actually that at least one big name didn't get taken. I'm not going to sit there and say necessarily from the Flyers side, it's not really all that shocking that they aren't interested in Jake Voracek's contract or James Van Riemsdyk's contract or anything like that. But, you know, some of the other guys, Gabe Landeskog's pretty valuable at this point, or even to take a chance on a Vladimir Tarasenko, you know, anybody like that. I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't at least one big name at forward. The biggest name that I found so far among the reports, unless somebody else is acquired in a trade that we find out about at 8 o'clock tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if the biggest name that we hear so far is like Jordan Eberle or Yanni Gordon. Most of the forwards that they took are bottom 6 type guys. So that's why I don't feel like things are done here with this, because to me, a lot of people talked about, oh, Seattle's going to be able to probably put together a playoff caliber roster from day one. And I look at the forward group and I look at the goalies that they picked and I go, these are not just necessarily unproven players, but the goalies are kind of unproven as starters. The forwards are mostly bottom 6 guys that don't really jump off the page at you. Defensively, they look great. They've got already 3 top defensemen, Mark Giordano leading that group for sure. But that's what's surprising me right now, is that they don't have guys who necessarily jump off the page at the forward group just yet. But I think that there's certainly more to come with this team, because Ron Francis has said publicly he wants this team to be able to compete. Well, I think that you're going to need to get guys who people recognize right off the bat and who kind of create an identity. It's why I thought there was a shot that Carey Price could go there being exposed by Montreal, just because regardless of his health and regardless of what he can do performance-wise, and we saw great things in the playoffs, obviously, he gives your team an identity from day one. People know that that's who he plays for. For people who want to go out and buy jerseys of this team when they go on sale, that's probably one of the first players who will go because of that. So it creates an identity, and I don't see a guy right now, maybe hold for a guy like Giordano, who really creates that identity.
Kevin Durso, tonight, the expansion draft, we think Carson Twarynski will be the pick for the Flyers. That's what's being reported. So if you thought it was going to be Voracek, JVR, Gostisbehere, it looks like your wish will not be granted. All right, Durso, we'll be following you at Kevin_Durso when news happens with the Flyers.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
All right, bud. And there's Durso with more on the Flyers offseason. The draft is coming up, free agency and the like. Follow Kevin_Durso for all the Flyers news. He's one of the best when it comes to the Fly guys. All right, when we come back next hour, Jeff Kerr on the NFL at 5:25 tonight. I'm back with more Sports Bash on the way. Here we go, 5 o'clock hour, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Call Jenkins Heating and Air Conditioning Installation Service and Maintenance, Plumbing on Drain and Drain Cleaning Service, 609-641-6440, or JenkinsPlumbingHeating.com. Mike Gill, final hour of the show. Hopefully you stay dry during that wacky rainstorm. It came down 2 different times, wherever you may be. So the Zach Ertz news, despite what is being reported out there, and many signs pointing to Ertz being traded in the offseason, it looks to be that Zach Ertz, now this isn't a wild surprise. We're trying to read between the lines here and say, why would this be coming out right now? That's what you have to do in this day and age. Why today? Why now? Apparently, he is set to report to camp on Tuesday. No surprise. They're not trading between now and Tuesday. And apparently, he's been working out at the NovaCare complex with teammates. That, according to Howard Eskin, the team's sideline reporter, who tweeted out earlier today that he's been working out at the team facility for close to 2 weeks with teammates and that he's, quote, over the issues. It's a little bit of a surprise when you look about at all of the Ertz stuff from the offseason. And I think, I don't remember, Rob Motti was on with us, and we asked him about the potential of them working this out. And I think what Motti said was, he just didn't see it happening, right? He just did not see a situation where these two sides could get past the whole situation with Zach Ertz. And this is what Rob Motti said. One of the reasons why the Eagles couldn't move on from Zach Ertz back at the draft.
Teams are very aware of the situation. They know that this relationship has deteriorated to a point where there's going to be a divorce. We just don't know when. So more teams are more likely, if they want Zach Ertz, rather than trade for him, nobody's giving up a third-round pick, and clearly nobody wanted to give up even a day 3 pick this past draft. So the Eagles are going to be left in a situation where you either take whatever teams give you or you just part ways with Zach after June 1st, which will help the salary cap situation a little bit.
All right, so that's what Rob said back in May. He also said this about the relationship between both sides, the Eagles and, of course, their tight end, Zach Ertz.
Where they're at right now, the Eagles have clearly drawn a line, Mike, where we're going to do what's in the best interest of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be critical of a team wanting to do what's in the best interest of the team. But we've seen situations in the past where they released Malcolm Jenkins. They released Deshaun Jackson several years ago. The Houston Texans released J.J. Watt. The Eagles could have released Zach Ertz, but instead they wanted a premium pick. They wanted a third-round pick.
So they could have released him. They want the pick. They didn't get it, obviously, right? That was the big thing. The Eagles kept trying to figure out a way to move him, and they could not do it. So this all started January 4th, the last game of the year. They had the press conference, and Ertz says, hey, I don't want to leave, but this is what's happening. Then you had some other reports out there that the Eagles were speaking to teams like Seattle, and we had John Clayton on the show. And John Clayton talked about the fact that, yeah, we'd be interested. Seattle, he covers the Seahawks. Seattle would be interested in Zach Ertz, but unfortunately, they're not, they didn't have much to give up, and they were like, they're not going to give up a third or fourth round pick to get him. So, there was some interest in him. The problem was what the Eagles were asking for. And so the Eagles had this crossroads of, hey, do we just want to give up our franchise best tight end for nothing? So teams like Seattle, Indianapolis, the Chargers, the Rams, they were all teams that we kept hearing back in February. Then we hear, well, a trade could happen in the coming days. You remember that? That was Mike Silver, I think, reported that, hey, a trade could happen in the coming days here. And that was right before the draft. So both sides are trying to dig their feet in here. They're trying to get the information out there, right? So we go back now. Let's go back a little further. You go back to, after the season's done, Ertz says he hopes to remain with the team. Then the Eagles had talked to the Colts and the Seahawks, what we just mentioned, the Rams and all that. Then Mike Silver reported that multiple teams have called the Eagles about the possibility of trading for Zach Ertz. Then there was a report that the Eagles wanted a 3rd or 4th round pick for Zach Ertz. All right, so then it got a little bit dicey there. Then Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, reports that the Eagles not in a rush to trade Zach Ertz. Why not? All right, then Ann Rappaport reporting the Eagles had given permission to Ertz to pursue a trade. Interesting. Now, you could go find a trade. Then it was reported that there's nothing between the Eagles and the Bills. All right, they could go find a trade. Well, they couldn't find a trade. Then it was reported there's a good chance that the Eagles and Ertz would not be able to come to an agreement, that he would not play for the Eagles. He didn't report to any of the voluntary workouts. That was thrown into the mix. Back and forth. So now what? Well, I think Zach Ertz realized he's not getting the money that he wants it. He knows the Eagles aren't getting the trade that they want. He doesn't have the value. Teams clearly didn't find him to be an attractive piece because of the year he had last year, right? He's set to earn $8.5 billion. No team in the NFL wants to pay that right now, especially entering camp. So is a team going to take him and pay him more? He had to realize, heck, I wanted to get a new contract here. Didn't happen. Couldn't get a new contract somewhere else. Okay, now what? So has Zach Ertz all of a sudden decided to cave in here and just say, I'll play for the Eagles? This is a really, really interesting thing because I could have sworn, I wish I had the bite somewhere from Rob Motti that we talked about this way back in the whole thing. And he said, something to the effect of essentially that there's no way like that Ertz was going to have this epiphany that he was going to play for the Eagles. After all that, basically he couldn't imagine him turning the other eye and saying, I'll come back and play for you guys. Basically the fences could not be mended, right? That the fences could not be mended between these two sides. So then you look at this. Do the Eagles get to the point that they say, let's just keep Ertz? Right? Let's just keep Ertz and figure it out from there. Did the whole front office come together and say, we can't move him, we're not just giving him away? That's a tough one to kind of decipher here. I'm having a hard time with that. Now, maybe Ertz reporting to camp doesn't necessarily mean he'll be on the roster. I've heard that many times, okay? We talked about it with Mosher about an hour ago. So what does it mean? Maybe Ertz says, look, let me get to camp, show that I can still play, and then maybe my trade value will go up a tick from a 5th rounder to a 4th rounder or something to that extent. Maybe Ertz and another team are hoping, or maybe Ertz and his team, I should say, are hoping that another team suffers an injury at tight end, or they go to camp with a couple unproven guys, and then they get to tight end, or they get to camp, and those unproven guys remain unproven, and the team says, you know what, we liked these two guys, but they're not good enough. We got to do something. There's a couple teams that I think have some tight end issues. One, the Arizona Cardinals, right? They're a team, the Arizona Cardinals, that could use a tight end that also are I don't want to say a pretty good team, but they have a chance to win, right? They have a chance to win, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, they're not a favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but How much does that change if they upgrade at that position? I don't know. 609-403-0973. If you take a look at the teams that need a tight end in this league, they would be one of the better teams, and they have a guy to trade for. That's what's interesting to me about those guys, right, is they have a team, they have a need, I should say, and they have a player that is, Jordan Hicks is on that roster. There's a match there for those two teams. I'm trying to think, you look around this league and say, all right, who else needs a tight end? I don't think teams that have tradable players like the Patriots don't need a tight end. They signed 2 this offseason. Miami, they don't really need a tight end. Mike Gesicki's a pretty good tight end. But Arizona, like Max Williams, okay, he's average. Who's another team? Buffalo. That's the name. I was trying to think. They could use a tight end. What's a match with Buffalo? They got Dawson Knox right now. Okay, that's a team that could use an upgrade there. So do they get to camp and realize, what? We are on the precipice of a Super Bowl, but Dawson Knox is not, maybe they need to find that out. Maybe they need to find out whether Dawson Knox is the right guy. So that's a team. That's a good team. Who else is a good team that maybe feels that they're that player away? That's what maybe the Ertz side is thinking about. Obviously, Indianapolis, we've heard a lot about that. Mo Alley Cox is he's an average tight end. He's not great. Kansas City, obviously not. The Raiders, they've got a great tight end. The Chargers, okay, Jared Cook's a good pass testing tight end, but would he be better off as the second guy? All right, possible. Just don't know how many fits there are in this situation. That's why this whole thing of, all right, let me report to camp and hope that something happens someplace else. That could be there. That's your Sam Bradford situation. We'll go camp with Sam Bradford, and then you hope that somebody gets hurt. But you can't go in hoping that something happens like that. Because then guess what? What if Zach Ertz gets hurt? Now you're down that road. Yeah, it's a weird situation here. And I mean, you can make an argument that, that Zach Ertz would help the Eagles out. But does he really? You've got Dallas Goedert. You've got Richard Rodgers. You want to see more from Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor. How does Nick Sirianni look at an offense with, man, I got to figure out how to get 2 tight ends on the field all of a sudden? I didn't anticipate this. Are you happy to see Ertz potentially coming back? And do you still feel that Ertz is going to come back? I'm a little torn on the whole situation, to be honest with you. Last year, Ertz played 11 games. He had 36 catches for 335 yards and 1 touchdown. Not good enough. Right? Not good enough. And I'm trying to figure out what and why would this come out like a week, not even a week, less than a week before this all happens. Like the Eagles side of things, would they be like, hey, let's put out there that Zach Ertz is, and as Mosher said, look, Ertz needs to say, like, I'm happy too. He doesn't want to be going in as the disgruntled employee if he wants to try to get traded, because now you're lessening your leverage. So, hey, now I'm happy. Our team's going to say, well, he's happy there now. Let me give you a 3rd-round pick. No, I don't see that happening, but it's a much better possibility from 0% to maybe 20% if he goes there and starts performing and says, hey, I'm happy. I want to be here. We're here to win. I still don't see that. So this whole situation is kind of wonky, if you ask me. What percentage chance do I see? Somebody asked me this the other day. What percentage chance do you see Zach Ertz plays for the Eagles this year? And essentially, I didn't see much at all, 15%. Is that going up? Okay, maybe today I see it at 30%. But a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, I may have said, man, bring Zach Ertz back. I'm in the camp that I think the Eagles offense could be a good one with a healthy offensive line. Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Kelsey, Sayamala, Mailata. If that's your starting offensive line, you can score points with that offensive line. You could score more points with more weapons. Zach Ertz is another weapon. But at the same time, I think I'm more intrigued by Dallas Goedert getting all the reps with Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, and I'm hoping Travis Fulgham shows me what he showed me in the 4 games that I got from him last year. And at this point, I feel Ertz is more of a asset in getting me more help on the defensive side of the ball. Do I think the Eagles are a Super Bowl team? No, I don't. Do I think they can make the playoffs? Yes, I do. Can they make the playoffs as constructed? No, I don't think that. They need help in the secondary. Can Zach Ertz get it? Not sure. Jay is watching the show on YouTube. He says, I say he has to go now. He's at the point of no return, Mike. Is he at the point of no return? He's going to show up on Tuesday. Is he just going to? I think Moshe brought up a great point. When he shows up, what does he do? Is he standing on the sideline and just watching? Are the Eagles putting him through the same stuff as everybody else? Is he a part of the offense? Are they doing 2 tight end sets? Right? All of a sudden, is Nick Sirianni saying, is he doing the Chip Kelly? Hey, how are you going to play these 2 tight ends? Well, I'm going to put 2 fingers up or whatever Chip Kelly said. I'm going to do 3 fingers up and we're going to put 3 tight. Like, is he going to say, no, we're going to use both these guys. I have an offense, 2 tight end sets. We're going to utilize it. Right? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Coming up, we'll talk with Jeff Kerr more about this. We'll get some more NFL with him. The camp's all open tomorrow. When the Eagles report to training camp on Tuesday, it appears Zach Ertz will be with them. And after months of speculation that Ertz would be moved, it has been reported today that there's a great chance that Ertz remains with the team to start the season. That's the other part of it. With the team to start the season. What season? The preseason? The regular season? You're killing me, Smalls. I think that if the Eagles have Ertz at camp, I don't want to say it's if the Eagles have Ertz at camp on Tuesday, okay, is it a precursor for him trying to work out a deal with his agent and the team to try to facilitate him to someplace else? In other words, let us call around and see who's not on Tuesday, but before the first preseason game. You have 2 weeks before that first preseason game. Chris Lefferts is watching on Facebook. Ertz for Howard. No, that's not happening. Yeah, Howard is too good of a player to just give up for Zach Ertz. And I know it sounds ridiculous because Zach Ertz is a pretty good player, but Xavier Howard is probably the second or third best cornerback in all of football, so that's not happening.
I had someone bring this up to me on Sports Bash Saturday this weekend, Mike, and that is people were like, well, what about Xavier Howard for the Eagles? And I was trying to explain to people, I said, listen, Xavier Howard right now is doing the social media game. He keeps adding and erasing stuff. He keeps putting out cryptic messages on Instagram and Twitter. Like, I'm not going to read that much into it. What motivation do the Dolphins have to dump Xavier Howard? Unless he's going to show up at camp.
He's in the Zach. Well, he's a little different than Zach Ertz. He has a long-term contract that he completely outperformed.
Right. But unless he's going to just hold out, he has to show up and get his money. They're not just going to trade him just for the heck of trading him.
No, but I mean, he could request a trade. Right. And that doesn't mean that you can 100% get your way out of there. But there's a lot of trade talk around him. There has been for the last, week or two.
But there's been rumors for months about Stephon Gilmore.
And
he's still in New England.
By the way, though, the difference, Howard did not attend the mandatory mini camps.
Right. There's a lot of veterans every year who don't do that.
Yeah, 1 year, he inked a 5-year, $75 million extension 2 off seasons ago. And 1 year into it, he wants to get out. So I think he isn't thrilled that he makes less money than Byron Jones on the other side.
Probably, but at the same time, that's something that is no guarantee that he's going to land in Philadelphia.
Okay, obviously not. And he's not going to land in Philadelphia for Zach Ertz. He's not. That's not happening.
No, it's not. It's not equal value at all.
He is 28 years old. It's not like you're trading for a 25-year-old, but I don't see it happening. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, Jeff Kerr, we'll ask him about it coming up. What does he think about these Zach Ertz report? We'll try to ask him to kind of read between the lines. Jay says some tight end needy team might take the bait or someone gets hurt in camp. That's what I think the Ertz side is saying. Let's come in. If somebody gets hurt, it happened to Bradford. Let's take a look at that. So I agree with you. I think both teams are in a weird situation right now, or both sides, the Ertz side and the Eagles. All right, Jeff Kerr's here to try to make some sense of what's going on in Eagle Land. A couple questions. If you have questions you want to get in on the stream, on the text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Let's bring Jeff in, CBS Sports, 97.3, ESPN.com. He'll be covering the Eagles this season, so obviously some Eagles news today. I guess this is interesting news, Jeff. I don't know how we read this. You know, Howard Eskin, who, of course, is the sideline reporter, so he knows the team very well, to put out that, hey, Ertz will be there on Tuesday. Kumbaya, he's over everything. He's been practicing with the team for 2 weeks, and everything seems to be A-okay. Read the tea leaves.
Well, I'm not shocked Zach Ertz is going to be there. I mean, it definitely looked like he was going to be there for at least about a week or two now. I didn't see the Eagles trading him, and Zach Ertz never reminded me of a player that would basically hold out. Like, that's just not his nature. He was going to show up as long as he's employed by the Philadelphia Eagles. He was going to show up. That's just not who Zach Ertz is. And, you know, we talked about Monday. You know, I feel Zach Ertz is going to start camp with this team. I'm not sure if he's going to finish camp with them, but he's going to be there. And, you know, it's perfectly okay to let bygones be bygones. Maybe Zach Ertz looks at this like, hey, I'm getting paid a lot of money this year to be a mentor on this team, to help this young team out, and let's give this team one final run for everything they've given me. And, you know, maybe last year he wanted a new contract. Maybe he realized the fact, I'm not getting a new contract. So you know what? I'm going to play out this year, and then I'm going to go to wherever I want.
Admirable, but is this a realization from the Ertz side that the offers weren't there? Because there was reports earlier that, hey, the Eagles had given him permission to find a trade, had his agent come back a week before camp and say, I tried, buddy. I got nothing for you.
And Steve Carrick's a good agent, too. Like, he's one of the best in the business, especially for tight ends. He takes care of them. So when they can't find a deal, that's concerning. So I think that's what it was. I think, you know, Carrick probably went to Ertz and said, hey, look, you know, the Eagles want to do this. We really can't find anything right now. There are definitely teams that are interested in you, but they're trying to lowball for you, and the Eagles just won't budge. And, you know, it always takes two to tango. And, you know, maybe Zach Ertz found his team, but that team didn't want to give up anything what the Eagles were looking for. And, you know, the Eagles aren't just going to cut this guy and let him go wherever he wants, not when he's such a valuable asset. So maybe Zach Ertz figured, hey, okay, we'll make the best out of a – I don't even want to call it a bad situation because I don't think he ever wanted to leave Philly in the first place. It's just that he got frustrated. He wasn't getting a new contract.
Yeah, all right. So you could play the hope game, right? You can say, look, what happened in 2016 with Sam Bradford? Maybe a tight end gets hurt somewhere. Is that what they're hoping for here?
Maybe. Here's the thing, though, Mike. There are a lot of teams that don't have tight ends right now. The Arizona Cardinals could badly use Zach Ertz. The Buffalo Bills could use Zach Ertz. The Carolina Panthers could use Zach Ertz. Maybe the New Orleans Saints. There are definitely teams out there that could use this guy, but they just don't want to give up what the Eagles feel Zach Ertz is worth. And I really can't blame the Eagles for trying to get as most as they can for a guy who really has only had one bad year in the NFL.
Right. I mean, yeah, the Eagles – but it's like, all right, are they putting this message out there to try to say, hey, we're not releasing this guy, so if you want him, you're going to have to meet our demands?
Yeah, that's it. And I feel the Eagles, they have, $4.8 million in available salary cap space. So they're looking at it as, okay, we can still do some things we need to do to make this roster better without getting rid of this guy. Because, okay, yeah, you save $8.5 million against the cap. Great. Unless you're trading for Xavier Howard or Stephon Gilmore, there is no reason to get rid of Zach Ertz. So maybe they know something we don't. Maybe they landed a Steven Nelson. Who knows? But the Eagles are looking at it as, we are a much better football team with Zach Ertz on it than we are without him.
All right. Are they, though? Are they taking away reps from Dallas Goedert? Do you think Goddard is a better player today than Ertz will be this season? And if that's the case, do you have an Alshon Jeffrey Travis Fulgham situation again next year or this year?
No, because I feel the Eagles will utilize both of them. The Colts did use a lot of 12 personnel last year, not as much as the Eagles have the past couple years, but the Eagles are going to find ways to get these two on the football field. There's no doubt about that. And I think both will ultimately share the target share, if you will. I don't think this is a Zach Ertz versus Dallas Goedert. I don't think this is hindering Dallas Goedert in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it kind of helps the Eagles out because not saying they're going to lowball Dallas Goedert because they'll still pay him what he's worth, but instead of probably making $6 million, $7 million a year, maybe Dallas Goedert makes $5 million a year because the Eagles will say, well, we haven't really seen you as a number one tight end yet, and that's not Dallas Goedert's fault.
Now you're going down to kick off your other tight end.
Yeah, exactly. It's smart business. Honestly, it's like, you're going to pay Dallas Goedert. It's just he probably isn't going to get as much as he would have gotten if he would have played this year and say he had 70 catches for 900 yards and 10 touchdowns. Then the price goes up. But if Zach Ertz is there, it's 4,605. Makes a big difference.
What's the message that I guess you got to say there's some motive here for the person reporting it, Howard Eskin, to say he's past all the problems from last year.
And he can be. That's what, when I always say, too, sometimes when I have problems, I let him go. Time heals all wounds. And Zach Ertz, he's had 8 months, okay, I can't, and we talked about this earlier, I can't go to where I want to, or no team wants to pay what I'm worth, and they're not going to cut me, so I'm going to make the best out of this. I'm going to ball out for the Eagles this year, and I'm going to make a lot of money in free agency next year.
Maybe. I mean, that's where I have a problem. The age, and if he doesn't play, if he does play, he's not going to be the full-time guy, we would imagine. He's not going to have the same role that he did in Doug Peterson's offense, right?
No, that's the thing. I don't think he's going to have that prevalent role, but he's going to be an important part of this offense. And look, any weapon that helps Jalen Hurts out is a good weapon for me. And Zach Ertz is that. I think Zach Ertz can have a monster year under Nick Sirianni. I think Nick Sirianni is going to find ways to line this guy up in the slot and utilize the best of his abilities, which is catching slants and catching the football. And maybe we'll have a creative enough offense where Zach Ertz can actually get yards after the catch. I know this is Eagles fans love to rip on Ertz for that, but I don't think that's Ertz. I think that was the system he was in. So I'm looking at it as, okay, look, I can't wait till he speaks next week because I really want to hear what he has to say about all this. I really hope he speaks on the first day of training camp.
In the best case scenario, you're not getting Xavier Howard, you're not getting Gilmore, you're not getting Jordan Hicks, right? You're not getting a guy who comes in and helps this team play for Zach Ertz. Like that whole thought of utilizing him to get something to help this team is not happening.
And I'm sure Howie Roseman could pull off a player-for-player swap, but do teams really want to do that? Like, I don't think the Dolphins are going to give up Xavier Howard.
Especially for a guy, Jeff, sorry to cut you off, making $8.5 million at this time of the year. Who wants to add that kind of salary right before camp starts?
Well, you got to look at the situations, too. The New England Patriots, they don't need a tight end. They have Jonnu Smith. They have Hunter Henry. They don't need him. The Miami Dolphins have, in my opinion, top 10 tight end Mike Gesicki. They don't need Zach Ertz. They have weapons on the outside. The Cardinals make a lot more sense because Jordan Hicks is pretty much falling out of favor there, and he's got 1 year left on his deal, and the Cardinals don't have a tight end, but Cliff Kingsbury doesn't use a tight end anyway. So it's kind of a waste of money at that point. You're probably just better off keeping Jordan Hicks on your roster in case someone goes down. So really, it's a dead-end situation. The only team I really see Zach Ertz going to is the Buffalo Bills, and they're not going to give up a third or fourth round pick for this guy.
Right. That's a situation where, much like you get to camp and you say, look, we like Knox. Are we a Super Bowl team? Let's give this kid a chance. We'll give you 2 weeks to prove to us that, in training camp. And if we look good camp and we're not comfortable, we'll call the Eagles. And
here's the other thing. This isn't over. Like, Zach Ertz could start the year with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he may not be here come week 9 because of the trade deadline. And, it all depends how the Eagles are. The Eagles are sitting at, 2-5. Yeah, you're looking to trade Zach Ertz, and teams will be willing to give up something for this guy because he's an asset. It's almost like when the Eagles gave up the 4th round pick for Jay Ajayi. He was an asset. He was going to benefit them immediately, and that's how teams are going to look at it. They're not going to make a move on July 21st. They're not going to make a move on August 21st, but October 21st, different story.
This one, it's just weird, the timing, I guess, right? I mean, the timing, it's less than a week before camp starts, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, all of a sudden he's happy. That to me is just kind of weird.
And he's in the building, like he's working with these guys.
He's been there for 2 weeks, right? I'm dreading that.
And I think he was always bought in. I don't think that was the issue. I just think he wanted a new contract and just didn't get it.
Yeah, and I think that's obvious. He wants the new contract. He didn't get it, and his agent says, we tried, and I couldn't get you something either. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty much what – he's between a rock and a hard place right now. but he's in a pretty good situation with the Eagles, and he knows it's a good situation. He likes the head coach. He didn't have to show up to voluntary minicamp anyway. So this is going to be his first interaction with Nick Sirianni, but he knows a lot of these guys on this offense. I'm sure Zach Ertz has studied this playbook left and right throughout this offseason. He knows he needs to have a big year, or if not, I'm not saying his NFL career will be over, but he's not going to get the money he thinks he's worth.
Yep. If Zach you tweeted earlier, if Zach Ertz did want to be traded, that this helped him, not a distraction at all. Why?
Yeah, because look, he's playing good soldier. I'm showing up. I am doing the work. I am not bothering this football team. You're not Nick Sirianni's not going to ask when Zach Ertz coming. Howie Roseman's not going to ask when Zach Ertz coming. Zach Ertz is here. Zach Ertz can field these questions, and he can vent his frustrations if he chooses to. And if he doesn't, and if all is well and good, then all is well and good. And yeah, it's a story, but it's more media-driven than anything else until something happens. Like, if Zach Ertz is not here, it's not media-driven. It's an actual distraction. But Zach Ertz is here, and if he's putting in the work, it's all okay. Now you're looking for content at this point, and Zach Ertz has created the content for you. He's going to be here.
Cam Akers went down. What does that do to the Rams?
Oh, man. They were 9-3 with Cam Akers last year. They were a pretty good football team. And now all of a sudden you're worried about depth at running back. It's not like Darrell Henderson can get the job done. I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about what's behind him. Xavier Woods, they really don't. Xavier Jones, sorry, not Xavier Woods. They really don't have much depth there. They have him. They have Xavier Jones, a 7th round draft pick. Behind him, it's just not a good situation. You got to bring a veteran running back there. No, Todd Gurley is not an option. Todd Gurley is so ticked off at the Rams. That's just not going to be a thing. So you got to look at Adrian Peterson. You got to look at Frank Gore. Chris Thompson would be an ideal fit because he's played under Sean. Yeah, Frank Gore. I mean, he's on the market. He's 38. He still wants to play, and he wants to play for a Super Bowl contender. Honestly, Mike, the two I would go with, I would probably go with Duke Johnson or Adrian Peterson. Those would be the two.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, they're not the same type of player that Akers is. I mean, they're totally different type of backs.
But they're depth, and that's what you need right now. You can't go in here saying, okay, we like Xavier Jones. You know what? The Eagles like Michael Warren and Adrian Killins, too. Look where that got him.
Yeah. What do you make of Steven Nelson tweeting that today or tomorrow, and then nothing's happened? He deletes his account. He deletes the tweet. Now he's back, but still not signed.
Yeah, again, tomorrow's not over yet. So, Steven Nelson could sign at 11:59 tonight. It does seem like, though, he's close to a resolution on where he wants to go. It's time now, Mike. Your training camp starts next week. You got to learn the playbook. You don't want to show up on the first day of practice and be absolutely clueless. You don't want to be behind the 8 ball. So I do expect he's going to sign soon. Maybe within the next 24 to 48 hours. I think it's really close.
Well, he thought so anyway, right? Today or tomorrow?
Yeah.
Not happened. It didn't happen. It hasn't happened yet. You're right. Today's not over. It's 5:38 on a Wednesday. So by the end of the day, we'll see if Nelson's somewhere. That's something to keep an eye on as well. Tomorrow, training camps open. 3 teams, Tampa Bay, Dallas, and Pittsburgh. And obviously, Dallas inside the NFC East here. We're all going to be watching to see what Dak Prescott does in these first couple practices. But by all accounts, Jeff, he's healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, he's good to go. And I'm curious to see what Dak Prescott does too. I honestly can't wait till the Hall of Fame game. Maybe he plays in that. I don't know. That's what's going to be so interesting, Mike. How are they going to play these guys in these 3 preseason games? We don't have 4 anymore. We're used to, the Stars get a series in the first game, and then it's, maybe it goes to 2 or 3 series the second game, then a whole half the third game, if that. How are we going to do this now? Are they going to play like a whole quarter of the first game? Are they just going to start with a series? Who knows? But I have a feeling Dallas is going to put Dak Prescott on the field, at least for a little bit, just to get him some game reps.
Yeah, you're right. 3 games. And then keep in mind, your last preseason game is the second to last week of August. You don't start the season until the second week or the third week, really the end of the second week of September. So you get
17 days off, essentially.
Right. There's this long gap between your last preseason game and when you actually play a game. So, I don't know, getting a lot of reps in that one game and then almost having like another bye week. It's going to be interesting to see how the teams utilize, because we saw the preseason, the Rams were one team that essentially didn't use it at all.
No, and they never do. And I don't think they're really going to use it that much this year, especially now with the Cam Akers injury. Like maybe you see Stafford for a series or two, but that's about it. But yeah, you're right, Mike. The Rams never use it. I'm curious to see what Sirianni does because we know how Doug Pearson felt about the preseason. He never played those guys ever. I think the only time he really played the stars in the preseason was Carson Wentz's rookie year, and Wentz got hurt. So I think that scared him off a little bit of all that. I'm curious to see what Sirianni does.
All right, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. We'll cover the Eagles for 97.3 ESPN.com, so we'll have a lot of NFL. By the way, Ben Roethlisberger showed up today looking like a very trim version of Ben Roethlisberger, something to keep an eye on there. And, of course, tomorrow the Tampa Bay Bucks will arrive at camp as well. We'll be all over it here on the Sports Bash. Football is back. Jeff Kerr is here, CBS Sports, 97.3 ESPN.com. Follow him for all your Eagles and NFL news this season at Jeff Kerr, CBS. All right, Jeff.
I want that Ben Roethlisberger shirt, Mike. I want to wear that first day of camp.
I'll see what we can do for you. I got this.
Lean mean. I'm lean mean. I'm good to go.
Yeah, you're in much better shape than I'm in. That's for sure. Take care, man. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, 97.3 ESPN on the Eagles beat for the 2021 season. I'm Mike Gill, Sports Bash Live. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving Storage in South Jersey. For your next local or long-distance move, Clark's Moving and Storage is your first call. They're dependable and always show up online, clarksmoving.net. Tonight on game night, it's a Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg is here. Always enjoy Dave Weinberg's musings and thoughts at 6:20 tonight. A couple comments in the video stream. Chris Lefferts wants to know if Ertz does get moved, where do you think it will be and for who? He mapped out a couple options. Arizona, Buffalo, I think are at the top of the list. Buffalo would probably be at the top of the list. And then a team where a guy gets hurt and they absolutely need somebody. I don't think there's a definitive team right now. Jay says some tight end needy team might take the bait or someone gets hurt in camp or preseason. Yeah, that's where I think you're at this point. Does somebody get hurt? Otherwise, you're kind of stuck with it. Wrapping up a Wednesday show. Back tomorrow with Keith Smith, Adam Kaplan, and more right here on the Sports Bash. All right, I can dig it. We could wrap up the show here on a Sports Bash Wednesday. Don't forget, coming up game night tonight with Dave Weinberg at 6:20 tomorrow. Keith Smith will wrap up the NBA season, talk a little bit about the offseason. The NBA draft, by the way, you can only hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. It's next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, 7 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN. Got the draft, got the Olympic basketball, and, of course, the draft, and then the Summer League. So still some hoops going on. By the way, speaking of the hoops, let me shift over to the baseball real quick. The Phillies looking to salvage a split in the 2-game series against the Yankees, and they'll do it tonight with this lineup. Gene Segura leads off at second base. JT Realmuto catches bat second. Bryce Harper, the DH, hits third. Andrew McCutchen is the left fielder. He hits fourth. Reese Hoskins is the first baseman. He hits fifth. Didi Gregorius is at short, hitting seventh. Brad Miller's in right field tonight. He hits seventh. Ronald Torreyes is at third base. He hits eighth. And hitting ninth and playing center field is Travis Jankowski. The pitcher tonight, here you go, is Spencer Howard. He is getting the start. He got called up today, and he will get the spot start tonight. Now, I imagine Howard will throw a bullpen game here. So I imagine he will throw 2 innings tonight. No more than 3. I would be shocked if he went more than 3 innings. Why? Well, he just threw 4 days ago. So they brought him up early. Here's a guy who's got problems to begin with, and they're bringing him up on short rest. But this is the problem the Phillies are having now. They've got a lot of COVID issues. So you're missing a bunch of guys. You've missed some starts because of COVID. You got bullpen guys out because of the COVID situation. This COVID situation has really been a problem for the Phillies.
And don't forget, Dombrowski said that they're not just going to make a trade for the sake of making a trade. Like, they are going to be reasonable, was the word he said. He said they're going to do what's best for the team, and they're going to be measured. He used all those words. Dombrowski doesn't come off as a guy who's going to make a rash trade just because.
Well, I will say this. This was tweeted out by Matt Gelb, who covers the Phillies. He said the Phillies are hoping for 2 or 3 innings from Spencer Howard tonight. Christopher Sanchez and Mauricio Lavara could give them 2 innings apiece. They'll see what happens. Do you feel good in the series against the Yankees with that trifecta of arms?
No, but at the same time, I thought the Phillies would win last night against Aaron Nola. So this could be the opposite effect. Maybe you throw out there the schleps out there and they win the game, but with the guy who's supposed to win, they don't win.
Right. Well, Nola's been so disappointing. I mean, another start where he just did not pitch well. That's starting to get frustrating.
Mike,
it's starting to get concerning as well.
It's getting to be unacceptable. And, I remember Dombrowski mentioned something about, maybe it's his mechanics. And it's like, okay, well, if it's mechanics, where's the pitching coach working on this? Where are the guys working to get him better? Because the Phillies as a whole gave up a lot of home runs last night. That's unacceptable.
The DD play at short didn't help him either.
It didn't help, yes. But at the same time, you're supposed to be the opening day starter. Whether you're the ace or not.
Completely
you gotta slow things down. You gotta take a timeout. You gotta be the steady guy, It's very frustrating.
Per the NBA, the percentage of households with televisions on the NBA for the finals last night and the playoffs, it's finished its highest since 2002. So I guess people are over the whole I'm not watching the NBA stuff anymore. Is that still a thing? I don't know.
I mean, it might be in certain circles. I feel like what's happened is since, not to get non-sportsy, but since the election is over and we got through that 2-month period where everything was still ridiculous, in terms of both sides just losing their minds, I think since then, as we've seen things normalize, the sports landscape is normalized as well. And people are realizing that at the end of the day, people want to watch sports. People want to, enjoy themselves. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if some of those metrics that they're finding for sports doing well right now is because a lot of people are out and about watching these sports at establishments.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to see that things have normalized a little bit. I'm glad that Giannis, by the way, did you see what Shaq tweeted away?
No, I did
or
not see Shaq's
Instagrammed.
tweet.
Congratulations, Giannis. Thanks for bringing old school bully basketball back. It's only one Superman now, and that's you.
That's a Shaq tweet, if there's ever a Shaq tweet.
Yep. So Shaq puts that out there, congratulating Giannis on the championship. I'm just glad. I hope people watch it. It was an entertaining end of the game. It was great to see Giannis. He was so refreshing. I loved what he said afterwards, saying I could have joined a super team, but I had unfinished business here. That was the best.
When he said that, I just was like pumping my fist, half asleep at home, just being like,
that was something. I'm glad you brought that up. I looked at when the game got over. It was like 11:25 last night.
My goodness, in the post game, still on the post game on the network.
Gosh. It was unbelievable.
I mean, and Malika, listen, me, and I love Malika Andrews, but I'm sitting there thinking, how long are they going to make her interview like half the team? Bring this guy out. Where's Bobby Portis? And I'm like, my God, that we need to interview the entire team.
By the way, so we don't have time to really get into this, obviously, but Maria Taylor was her last broadcast last night. She's leaving ESPN. I think ESPN, watching the finals on ESPN was rough compared to a TNT broadcast. I will say that. They need to really fix that NBA countdown.
They need to clean it up.
They need to fix that NBA countdown pregame stuff. I know a lot of people, pregame isn't that. Look, the TV's on. I'm waiting for the game to get on. That pregame show is not very good.
And you know what the problem is that now you're going to have probably a whole new setup because whoever they're going to make the next.
Well, they need to really tweak it and fix it.
Well, this is an opportunity for them to do so.
All right, game night's coming up. Dave Weinberg, it's a Weinberg Wednesday.
He's got something to say with the Zach Ertz stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to that on my drive home tonight. Hopefully you guys are too. I'm back tomorrow with Keith Smith and Adam Kaplan.